with Cody Carpentier. We're live.
We are live.
This is the man. This is the man. So I think I'll bring you on. We'll be the ultimate workhorse of the underworld. I think ultimate underworld. I like that alliteration. I mean, you manage a team of, what is it, 50-plus game analysts that are charting these games?
Yeah. I think at one point it was at about 75. So
whoa, right?
Pretty big squad.
Right? Plus the mock drafts, plus not only the NFL mocks that you do. You did a 2-round mock draft. Are you going to do a 3-round mock in January?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
we gotta wait for the season
3-round
to end.
mock. Just go to the articles section of PlayerProfiler.com and type in 2022, and you can get access to Cody Carpentier's December mock, his 2.0 mock, 3.0 mock coming out very soon, and then we're loading the new rookie mocks so you can see how far up Pickett's moving. Who else is moving up besides Kenny Pickett?
Pickett's moving up. The receivers are more starting to separate themselves. It's starting to look like more of a top 8 in this class, I guess. But I think we got a lot of time to go, and I think Pickett is probably going to end up being that guy that just continues to be the biggest mover all the way through.
Top 8 wide receivers?
Top 8 over. I think you're going to want to be in the top 8 of these rookie drafts.
Oh, okay. So a top 8 skill position players.
Yeah.
Where how many running backs and how many wide receivers are in that top 8? We're talking about single quarterback?
Yeah, we're talking single quarterback. I don't know. I trust 2 of these running backs. The third one, I want to see how he tests out in Isaiah Spiller. I think we're pretty confidently good with 4 receivers. And then I think you're going to end up with 1 quarterback up there. But I think it's a pretty...
Let's see if I can guess. So the running backs are Spiller, Breece Hall. We know that.
Yeah.
Kenny Walker, is he moving up?
Yeah, I got Kenny Walker ahead of Spiller because I don't think Spiller's going to run. A lot of people like Spiller, but from what I've seen, I'm not so sure he runs under a 4.6. I think he's going to be a mid 4.6 guy, and I don't love that. Just like a Zach Moss type. I'm just a little afraid he's going to come in slow.
So is David Bell in this big 8, this top 8?
He's close. He's right on the edge of it.
Well, then there might be a top 10. I'd be happy with David Bell in the second half of a rookie draft.
Yeah.
Is Drake London in that big 8?
Yeah. I think you're looking at Hall, Spiller, Walker, Burks, Wilson, Olave, Jameson Williams.
Oh, you're including Jameson Williams. That's your big 8. I don't think Jameson Williams is better than David Bell, though.
It's close.
So then it's not a big 8. It's really a big 9.
But I don't know. I still think you're going to be in that top 8 though, because you want to have that. You want to have that pick. You want to make that selection. You don't want to make somebody else make that selection for you.
I just want Treylon Burks, and if I can't get Treylon Burks, then Garrett Wilson is a nice consolation prize.
Yep.
Because in a lot of my leagues, I've loaded up on young running backs. I have the Swifts and the Taylors. And I have a lot of ETN waiting in the wings. I'm good to go, right? Pollard,
Yep.
Madison, all these young running backs that are poised in some way to smash next year. I do need to bolster my wide receiver core in a bunch of places, and I'd like to have a wide receiver that's going to instantly produce. And Burks and Wilson and Olave most likely too. Olave could be an Elijah Moore in 2022. You could easily see that.
I don't think he's as explosive, but the route running from Olave is what's going to really separate him at the next level completely. I think Elijah Moore's a little more explosive, but I think Olave's going to force himself in there. Jahan Dotson's another guy that could force himself up. He's been pretty prolific at Penn State, but we got these guys like George Pickens and Drake London. Those are going to be your second-round draft picks, I think, because of injury, that that's going to be your value in round 2. You're going to have a George Pickens and a Drake London, even like a David Bell. I don't think he's going to get enough respect. Like Rondale Moore didn't get the respect last year. From us, like we're looking at our mock draft data, David Bell's going to get that respect because we know. But I'm saying like in your leagues, I don't think David Bell's going to get the respect he deserves.
What if listen, look at Elijah Moore though. Elijah Moore went and had by far and away the most impressive combine compared to expectation.
Yeah.
And we didn't know he was that explosive. We had no idea. We thought maybe upper percentile agility score, 95th percentile agility. Sure. Right? But we didn't know he was going to be essentially a bit more athletic version of Tyler Lockett. And we didn't know that. So that's my thinking with David Bell is that he could have one of those Elijah Moore combines where he gets on the radar. He's showing up in mocks as a third rounder. Next thing you know, you look up, he's an early second rounder in the actual NFL draft.
And the positive with that is we already have these player pages up on Player Profiler. And for those people that aren't as aware of David Bell, and we're talking about him blowing up at the combine, imagine a guy that's right now projected as like a second round pick, and we're talking about him being end of the first round rookie drafts. He's 6'2", 205, 21 years old. If he comes in and blows the combine up 1,000 yards as a freshman, like this is what we're talking about.
This is what we're talking about. So we don't have high school workouts on him though.
No, we only got the scouting grade. He didn't run coming out. That's the problem. Some of these guys like just don't run. They don't go to the Nike opening. They don't do any of these things. And he was just one of those guys.
He's one of those guys. But if you're going to Elijah Moore, for example, or some other wide receiver, running back who's in the league, who's in the NFL, you can click on the little icon next to workout metrics, and you can go see their high school workouts. A lot of people don't know about that hack. Yeah. That there is a carousel, and it'll flip over to show you the high school workouts if you want to see them on NFL players. Like, I don't know offhand what Amon-Ra St. Brown's high school workouts look like, but you can go look that up.
Yep.
That's on there. You just hit the little double arrow icon next to workout metrics. That's why you listen to this show, for these little hacks, right? So I'll bring you on.
Yeah.
We have a lot to talk about, dude. I hope you've a way to make it through hours of a show. I mean, Aaron Stewart came on. We did 3 hours. So when I bring on members of the underworld, I'm untethered. Like, there's no limits.
Yeah.
Like, if someone's, working at some other site and they have a schedule and they're letting me know, hey, I got to be done by a certain time. My boss is telling me, I got to get this article out. I got to do X, Y, Z. Like, I'm respectful, right? but I know your schedule, right? Like, I know that we could just go, right? I know that you have a bunch of things. We have to load data and all these things. I get it. But I also know that the Mind of Mansion show is the priority, right? This was the first. This launched everything, right? We started the podcast right when we started the website. And most people were introduced to the website via the podcast. So this show takes precedent over pretty much everything. So let's get started. Welcome to the Roto Underworld Radio program, the ultimate workhorse of the underworld, and my good friend, the perfect analyst to talk about Week 17, the Fantasy Football Championship Week. You know who it is. It's Cody Carpentier! Talk to me.
I was wondering how you're going to do that. I was wondering the transition there because the last name gets a lot of people, and you perfectly enunciated it, and you brought us on strong, like always.
Very strong, very strong. You have to just go quickly through those long last names. You can't, it's actually the shorter last names that sometimes trip me up. Yeah. Like John Daigle. Like that one was, I was like, how am I gonna
Yeah.
Like I don't have with the Carpentier. Like I know I got to get it over with, right? Like I know I got to be efficient. I got to make it to the end, and that's all I know. When you have a shorter name, I have almost too much flexibility, so I get paralyzed by pronunciation choice, right? Choice paralyzation, decision fatigue.
Yep.
Now, you host the Undercovered Ops show on the program, on the network, and this coming year, it'll be Undercovered Prospects, right? So Undercovered Prospects becomes Undercovered Ops. It's the only show that changes its name as context shifts throughout the season, which I think is just very clever. And then we also have the Early Risers live best ball draft show, and we're going to have more shows. We have the Future Cast coming back, talking about college prospects heading into the NFL. So it's very exciting.
Yep.
When you think back to the Undercovered Prospect show from the spring and the summer, what was the prospect that has hit that you just saw coming from a mile away? And then you got a bunch of that guy in your best ball drafts in Dynasty, etc.
The clear cut number one for me is Michael Carter. I think he was my fourth most owned. Chuba Hubbard's in there too, but my fourth most owned player on Underdog this year. It was behind Saquon and Gibson, and it was Michael Carter was right there. And even if you go to the world famous draft kit this last year, it said Michael Carter is going to be an RB2 inside the top 24. Take it to the bank. He's RB26 right now after missing 3 games. That was one of those backfields where we didn't exactly know, but that I felt very confident in Michael Carter. And I thought on Undercovered Prospects all spring that he was getting overshadowed by Javonte. And Javonte's fine. He's great. I think I might have got over my skis a little bit on him saying, he's not as good, but he's good. But Michael Carter was he was so underrated all summer because he was just getting disrespected.
118 yards last week. Tevin Coleman, similar number of carries, half the yards.
Yeah. He's
He's not as explosive as Michael Carter anymore. And we know that Ty Johnson is explosive, and the team is saying, never mind. Never mind. Ty Johnson, you're inactive. We have full and complete trust in Michael Carter. There's now no reason, no incentive whatsoever for this team to draft a running back on day 1 or day 2. It's going to be Michael Carter's job in 2022. And it's amazing to think about. You had Trey Sermon getting drafted earlier, but his prospect profile was just not as robust as Michael Carter. Michael Carter was one of the best receivers in this class, not Trey Sermon, right? Yeah. And he had more juice. If you watch college football, Michael Carter had more juice on a game-to-game basis than Trey Sermon. It's just, Kyle Shanahan was pounding the table. I mean, enough. That has to be the end. Like the Trey Sermon experience has to be the closeout of NFL coaches pounding the table for a player, moving up and taking him in the 3rd round, and then us going ahead and saying, okay, we better get that guy over someone else. Like Keyshawn Vaughn the year before went ahead of Antonio Gibson in almost every single rookie draft. But when you actually zoom out, who had the more robust profile? Who was bigger, stronger, faster, better in every way? It was Antonio Gibson. And other than size, Michael Carter was better than Trey Sermon in every way. At least Michael Carter had touch competition at the college level that would explain why he wasn't used as a primary back, a workhorse at the college level. And then we look up and, Javonte Williams is a top 5 dynasty running back. So if Javonte Williams is a top 5 dynasty running back, then that necessarily means Michael Carter should probably move up everybody's dynasty rankings.
Yeah, that was the weird thing too, was like coming out, everyone discredited what Michael Carter did because of what Javonte did. And they always pointed to like this game against Miami when Javonte broke a bunch of tackles and Carter actually led that game in rushing with 308 yards on the ground. He led the team in receptions year after year.
He had 300 plus yards in that one game.
In that one game against Miami that really vaulted Javonte up, where he broke like, I don't know, a dozen tackles in the one game. He had like 200 yards on the ground. He didn't actually lead the team in rushing that game. It was Michael Carter with 308 against Miami in that game. And they like discredited it. They're like, oh, Javonte broke tackles. And I was like, but this guy had 300 yards on the ground in that same exact game. And you're crediting one guy, but you're not crediting the other guy. And what you just said with Dynasty was my entire kind of thesis with Michael Carter this year was I want Michael Carter year one because I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to get the receptions. But I didn't really want him in Dynasty because I figured they would take somebody. But down the stretch here, I mean, obviously
you figured they would draft a running back in 2022.
My process,
but he's played so damn well. Now it's like you needed to get him in your rookie draft. He was available the beginning of the second round, and the choices were Trey Sermon, Michael Carter, Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, Terrace Marshall. Ooh, right? I mean, it was tricky. There were some landmines in there. The Sermon and Terrace Marshall landmines are still reverberating.
Yep. And I was taking Carter, getting flack for it because it was like, oh, Sermon's he's going to be the bell cow in San Fran, and then he's inactive. But the biggest thing I think with this Michael Carter news is, yes, how he played early in the season was fantastic, but he had that dreadful high ankle sprain. He misses those 3 games, and nobody takes over. It's Austin Walter, it's Ty Johnson, it's Tevin, it's P. Ryan had a couple snaps in there. He misses 3 games with a high ankle sprain, comes back, gets worked in the first week, week 15, and then this week goes for 118. Completely healthy, completely back. There's nothing lingering. I don't know how they can go away from him.
I mean, he's essentially the signature running back riser on the dynasty rankings now that we see, they're going to install him as a workhorse in 2022. I know it was the Jacksonville Jaguars, but the usage and the efficiency are the signal that we were looking for that, Michael Carter is going to be the guy next year. And now that we know that, now that week 16 is in the books, you're going to see his value rise. He will pop more in the dynasty rankings because of the difference between expectation and because of the relative information that has been gleaned in the last week. Because of that, he'll rise more than Tee Higgins. And Tee Higgins is going to be the big riser at the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
Now, did you see the Steelers get crushed by the Chiefs? That made me happy.
I know every single week, they get just destroyed. You do a show with On, and then
we're doing a show this week. On is coming on. Of course he is.
I got back so I went to the Vikings-Rams game, and I get back home, and I sit down, and I think it was like 23-0, middle of the second quarter, and I was like, oh my, I know Kansas City's been hot the last few weeks, but what is happening here? Like nothing, 23, and then it was 30-0. I was like, oh my, this Pittsburgh team is
toast.
It's almost like the toast. Yeah, basically toast. Like for a couple weeks, it was the Chargers were like, well, one week they'd blow somebody out, then they'd get beat. Blow somebody out, get beat. And now it's like Pittsburgh. You just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to show up any given Sunday. It's kind of it's mind-boggling to be honest.
I thought this was a good defense, but as it turns out, just because you have 2 good defenders, T.J. Watt and maybe one. Is there another good defender Minkah Fitzpatrick? Maybe.
Minka's Joe Hayden has been injured for the last month and a half, but Alex Highsmith, they have a strong front, but just overall the back end's terrible.
I mean, teams are running at will on them. They're passing at will. They're doing whatever they want. They can't beat good teams. Yep. That's the problem. They can't beat good teams, and it'll be interesting. 2 games consecutively to close it out against AFC North competition, Monday Night Football, Browns, Steelers. It's at Pittsburgh, and the Browns are favored.
The crazy thing is the Steelers can still make the playoffs if they beat Cleveland and they beat Baltimore these next 2 games, and they beat Cleveland in Week 8 and they beat Baltimore in Week 13. Like all 4 of these teams are still alive. All 4 of them really just they all control their own destiny to make the playoffs. And the only one that really can shut it out is Cincinnati. If Cincinnati beats Kansas City, it's over. But
the wild card is going to go to Indianapolis and New England. It's that third wild card is up for grabs. Is it going to go to the Chargers? I hope so. The Chargers are going to bounce back this week. They have to. They will. They've got Denver. They've got Las Vegas. They will bounce back. They will win. I am predicting it. The Chargers are going to make the playoffs, not the Steelers. I also don't think the Steelers beat the Ravens at Baltimore. That's a tough game. And Lamar Jackson will likely be back for that game. Yeah. Hopefully they'll at least get one of their corners back. Who are the corners in Baltimore right now?
They're so beat up right now. I cannot believe that they're still kind of floating. They're still available. They're still alive in this race. They're down to like Chris Westry, who's like a 6'5", 220-pound cornerback, and I think he missed last week. They're down to Tavon Young, who really hasn't played. He had a neck injury a few years ago, and they really didn't know if he was going to keep playing in his career.
So he's playing? He's back?
Yeah, he's back. He's been playing. He's been more of like a gadget guy. They've been using Tavon Young and Jimmy Smith as gadget guys the last few years. And now Kayvon Seymour comes off the street. Daryl Worley hasn't played a snap all year. He's like, I don't know what he is, 32, 33 years old maybe. Comes off the street, plays 80% of snap. Like, it's so bad. It's ugly. Terrible. And
no Jimmy Smith, right?
You can't get no Jimmy Smith, no Marlon Humphreys. Anthony Averett played like 10 snaps. Like, this is worst case scenario, almost as bad as early this year. I remember the Detroit Lions. They lost everybody like in the first 4 weeks, and we were literally creating player pages because guys were coming off the street, and I was like, who the hell is X? And it was like, whoa. Well,
former wide receiver, right?
Undrafted,
former running back. Hey, can you wear the jersey? Give him some shoulder pads. Give him a number. Get him out there. And what do we know about the NFL draft? There are certain types of players that are simply rare, right?
Yep.
Quarterbacks with that Justin Herbert skill set are rare. Tackles with the Rashawn Slater skill set are very rare. That's why when one falls into the teens, like Tristan Wirfs or Rashawn Slater, it's an auto pick over a Devontae Smith or anyone else. Because the scarcity of those particular players with those profiles is so great. What's the other super scarce position in the NFL? The big, fast, skilled cornerback. That's why the Marshawn Lattimores get pushed up. That's why Denzel Ward, who is delivering, he's a top 10 cornerback in the league. He was a top 10 pick coming out of Ohio State. When you lose all your cornerbacks with size and athleticism, it's impossible. It's impossible to stop opposing X receivers, especially opposing X receivers with some explosiveness. So it just made sense. It made sense that the player that was perfectly positioned to exploit this secondary was Tee Higgins last week.
Yeah. It was Higgins or Chase no matter what. It just was almost too obvious, but to predict that Joe Burrow is going to go 525 and top 5 all time was crazy to see Boyd, Chase, and Higgins all pay off. But this is the world we live in. These guys, this offense is unreal. Unreal.
It is just very cool to watch. But remember, it looks better when you're playing against guys off the street, guys that have switched positions, guys with temporary jerseys. Because cornerback, the alpha cornerback skill set is not easy to find in the NFL. That's why when you have one, you need to pay up for it. And when they're available in the draft, you need to go ahead and push the button over a position like wide receiver. Wide receiver is much more replaceable than the cornerback position, and we're seeing that with the Baltimore Ravens right now. I mean, just look at Houston. Look at who's starting in Houston. It's Chris Conley. It's Philip Dorsett. It's Nico Collins, a late third-round pick. You can always find guys to play wide receiver in the league. You can't always find guys to play tackle. You can't always find guys to play outside corner.
Yep.
you can find guys to play running back. We've seen this year, of all the positions, the one position you could always find is guys to play running back. Hello, Craig Reynolds, who was actually good at Kutztown. Like, Craig Reynolds looks like a converted wide receiver. He put up 50-plus catches as a freshman at Kutztown. Like, he must have converted, Cody. Can you go look at the Kutztown stats? Please, how was he categorized as a freshman at Kutztown? Please, you did the research. You found out, no, he was a running back. He was just a volume satellite back at Kutztown, and that made me respect Craig Reynolds all the more. I want him to get another opportunity at some point in his career. I believe he will. Cam Akers has not only been taken off the physically unable to perform list or the NFI list, he's now been activated. He will be active on game day. He will be on the field, carrying the football, catching the football. How do you see the touch distribution playing out between Akers and Michel in Week 17?
Maybe, right? Maybe. So right when he got activated, I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, he's actually gonna play. And the immediate, like 10 minutes later after they activated him, it came out that the reason they activated him was because you have to play 3 games to collect your year for your pension, for your NFL pension. So he has to be active for 3 games, but that was before last Sunday. The problem last Sunday was Darrell Henderson comes in for 1 snap. I was at the game, and it was Sony Michel. They brought Darrell in for 1 play, and he gets hurt. He gets rolled up on pretty hard, and now he's on IR.
He's the big faller, right? He's the big faller in the Dynasty. As fast as Michael Carter is moving up, and his lifetime value is just ticking, up. Darrell Henderson, down. I don't know if he'll ever be a starter in the league again. We'll see. He likely will be because he'll find himself on some other team, and then that team will lose 2 running backs, and he'll be the starter because you're seeing all these 27, 28-year-olds being vaulted into the primary running back chair across the NFL. So he'll be a starter again, but will he ever have any significant dynasty value? Probably not.
I think the positive you can take away from Henderson is knowing that if you did want him, your value is like, it's coming. This summer, I think it's going to be coming unless something happens to Akers because, let's face it, I mean, Sony looked fantastic again. He fits that scheme perfectly. That zone scheme yesterday or on Sunday was beautiful to watch. And he's going to be a free agent. They're not going to pay Sony Michel. They're not going to pay him. They got Henderson with another year left on his contract. They got Akers as Akers. He's one of the best running backs in the league, whether people know it or not. They're not going to re-sign Sony. It's going to be Sony. Or it's going to be Akers. It's going to be Henderson next year.
And they can afford to keep Akers on the active roster and not even play him because they're already locked into a playoff spot. And Arizona is a 5.5-point dog this week against Dallas. I couldn't believe that. I looked up at the Cardinals are 5.5-point underdogs. Is there recency bias there?
Little bit. But this Dallas team has been awesome. Like they've won their last 4 games. 3 were on the road: New Orleans, Washington, New York. They lost by 3 on Thanksgiving. They should have won that. Lost by 10 at Kansas City, and since that, they've been fine. And I think Dallas it's tough. The NFC is really strong. Like the Rams, Packers, Dallas, I think any 3 of those teams could represent the NFC this year. I don't think it's clear cut.
The Cardinals just signed Brashad Breeland. Anytime an NFL team signs Brashad Breeland, I want to go play the wide receivers facing that team in the coming week.
And the funny thing is, not to give any secrets away, but the next question on here is about the guy he's going to be playing this week, Amari Cooper.
So I think that Amari Cooper is going to put Brashad Breeland in the spin cycle. I see it. I can see it coming a mile away, man.
Let's run the rewind sound effect.
Yes.
Week 8, Amari Cooper versus the Vikings. lines up on Bashaud Breeland. Amari Cooper's stat line, 8 for 122 and a touchdown.
This is why you're on the show. This is why I didn't realize that. But if you go to his player page, go to Amari Cooper's player page on PlayerProfiler.com, you click on the game log, we show you the cornerback that faced off with him more than any other, his primary matchup that week. So you could scroll down and be like, what? This is a deja vu situation. And he's finally playing well again. I think it took him multiple weeks to fully get over COVID. I think that it was creating a strength and conditioning issue. There was fatigue, as many players are experiencing. And it took him a month, and now he's fully back, and you're playing it with confidence, and it's on. He's going to maybe score more fantasy points this week than he did last week.
He's going to be big. It's this fantasy championship. You've been riding Amari Cooper. You haven't traded him. I got a couple guys that I talked to about fantasy, and I've been saying, hold Amari Cooper, dude. You got to just trust the process with him. And we talked about this early in the season with Robert Alford, Marco Wilson. We like Byron Murphy.
Well, he's one of the best slot corners in the league. If you look at our cornerback rankings, and you are also in charge of the cornerback rankings and the mock drafts and the game analyst team and so many things at the Underworld, the cornerback rankings are one of our great differentiators and why people sign up for our rankings, not just the weekly and the seasonal and the dynasty and the rookie rankings, but also the cornerback rankings. We have the best rankings in the business. You, Josh, and our whole team collaborating to create the best rankings in all of fantasy football. And I look up and I'm like, wow, that's interesting. The Cardinals have the best slot corner in the league.
Yep. But
they also have some of, if not the worst, outside corners. No one has worse outside corners right now than the Ravens, but just the default roster for the Cardinals coming into 2021, it was shaky.
Coming into 2021, it was Robert Alford, and he's pretty washed. Marco Wilson, young guy, very young guy, fast. Alford's now out with a pec injury. Marco Wilson's got a shoulder injury. He's questionable. Bashaud Breeland's going to be playing this week. He's going to be lined up on Amari Cooper. If Marco Wilson plays, he's going to be up on Gallup. Byron Murphy in the slot on the guy that plays in the slot, probably the best receiver on the team, CeeDee Lamb. I don't say he's going to, take CeeDee Lamb out of this game, but Dak's going to be looking at Amari Cooper more often. He's going to go, oh, hey, I remember you. Week 8, Bashaud Breeland, you want this again?
It's the reverse Isaiah McKenzie effect, right? Yep. So Isaiah McKenzie was attacking New England's weakness, which is slot corner, right? And Stephon Diggs had a relatively inefficient game, no surprise, against J.C. Jackson. The reverse is true this week for the Cowboys, where they are facing a team with a quality slot corner and weak outside corners. So the targets will flow to a level. They will find their efficient direction and location, and that will be to the outside. That's going to be Gallup. That's going to be Cooper.
It's exciting.
So we're going to have a 2-game squeaky wheel for Amari Cooper. Good for him, man. Good. I was thinking about it. Genius move. And Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb must be rolling their eyes. And they're like, wait, you waited until the Washington game to speak up, Amari Cooper? You just happen to be healthy now. We all know that you haven't been 100%, and that's why you haven't been targeted. But now that you're feeling better and we get Washington on the schedule, you're also going to go to the media and put pressure on Dak Prescott to target you all the more? Great. And guess who suffers? Oh, Lamb and Gallup underproduce, and it's all Amari Cooper against Washington, and then they're going to go right back to him this week. This guy's genius. Amari Cooper, a political genius.
Continues to just churn it out. You start hating on him, he comes back.
He's owed $20 million next year. Should they bring him back, or they could eat $6 million in dead cap and re-sign Gallup for less?
No, I think Cooper's coming back. You could never have too many weapons. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep Cooper and let Gallup walk and then just draft another receiver. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, there's a lot of receivers we've talked about. And they can't all go top 10. They can't all go top 20. You see a guy, all it takes is one little hiccup. If Garrett Wilson runs a 4.55 instead of a 4.3, and I don't think he's going to run a 4.3, but they might.
There's
might get
no
pushed
way
down.
they go wide receiver in the first round after they burned a first rounder on CeeDee Lamb, which was a great pick, right? It's not like they wasted it, but they've recently gone wide receiver in the first round, and they will have Cooper and Lamb on the roster. No way. It'll be one of the lowest priorities, positional priorities, when the team is drafting, but they can do anything in the second round, in the third round. You can't look at the need of the Dallas Cowboys when they're drafting in the second or third round. It's whatever Jerry's feeling like. If there's a sexy player on the board, he's going to draft him.
That's what I'm saying. You can't. This defense is pretty much built. What they need, they can shore up in free agency. They don't need to spend, on a receiver in free agency. They're going to get rid of Gallup. He's gone. It's Cooper. It's Lamb. Bring in that third guy.
Who is that guy? Who is the guy that comps to Michael Gallup that they can replace him with in the draft?
Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's
going to go first round.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Go deeper. Go deeper.
Look who you're talking about. You're talking about Jerry Jones. You're talking about Jerry Jones with the Dallas Cowboys. He wants to have the best offense in football. He's already got one of the best defenses. He's hit so hard on Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy, all these guys that they've recouped in this defense. Trayvon Diggs. I mean, come on. It would not surprise me. This defense is built. It would not surprise me. They're outside of the zone. I think they should go offensive line. I don't think they will because I think they're going to be too late in the first. They should go offensive line. But it would not surprise me if one of these guys, a Garrett Wilson, a Jahan Dotson, falls and they take him at the end of the first round.
Jahan Dotson, I think you're getting closer, but I know the answer. The answer is you need to get Jerry Jones excited. The guy has to have a Power 5 conference helmet, right? He needs to have made plays in national championship games, and Justin Ross has the size, but if you look at his high school workouts, he was not particularly athletic, so he could underwhelm at the combine, fall to the late second round, maybe even third round, and then you see Jerry chasing that Clemson helmet, wants to get someone from Clemson in the building. Justin Ross is my pick.
I don't hate that. You get that big X on the outside because Cooper, he's your X receiver, but and this is a big thing I'll talk about, like on undercovered prospects and stuff, and how I find these guys at undercovered ops is just finding that dog mentality in their brain. Cooper doesn't have that, to be honest with you. Cooper's got all the talent in the world, but he just doesn't have that Justin Jefferson, that Randy Moss, that go get it, that dog mentality. You need a real
Debo.
X and. Debo,
Debo Samuel is the quintessential,
dog.
Just absolutely wants it more than anyone on the other side of the field. Period.
Yep.
Now, what about the tight end position? Because Dalton Schultz just continues to outperform expectations. I think he's secured the starting role next year. And you want to be a starting skill position player for the Dallas Cowboys. It's a great role to have. Is he going to be undervalued in 2022?
Yeah. Because he's that guy, because he's that, fifth option. This would be your argument why they wouldn't go receiver. They let Gallup walk and they trust, maybe they re-sign Cedric Wilson and they say, all right, he's our number 3, and we'll take a guy in the third or fourth round because we know we have Schultz there. Back-to-back 600-yard seasons, 73rd percentile agility score, still 25 years old.
He's a good football player. I think he's just good at football. And we are going to prioritize good football players on good teams more than we ever have in 2022. And you can see us already, in my head, I can see it, well above consensus on Dalton Schultz.
How's he not maybe 10 or 11 in the Dynasty Tight End? How is he right there?
He's close. There's a cluster there. right? There's a cluster there. He's in that Higbee, Adam Troutman zone. It's really whoever wants it. It's really whoever wants to jump up and take it. And after what we saw last week, and especially if he's productive again this week against Arizona, he establishes himself as the tight end of the future in Dallas. Once we feel comfortable that a player has established himself as the tight end of the future on a particular team, then he naturally moves up, especially if he's on a good team, especially if we're tethered to a top 5 offense. I think longer term, when you think about a 3-year projection for NFL offenses, that you would put the Dallas Cowboys in the top 5. You'd put them right there with the Rams, right there with the Cardinals, right there with the Chiefs. And you talked about Sony Michel likely being the primary back for the remainder of the season because Cam Akers is going to work back slowly. So I think we can go back to Sony Michel, especially in DFS this week. You wanted Darrell Henderson active so you could play Sony Michel at lower ownership, and the same is true now with Cam Akers. You want to root for him to have some kind of role that would scare people off Sony Michel. Go right back to Sony Michel. The problem in Seattle is there's no one to scare anyone off Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny's just marauding. And the question is, has he secured the primary back role for the Seahawks in 2022? Because he's on the verge of being anointed their primary back next year. I think we can look up at, well, how could it not be Penny with Chris Carson going to turn 28 years old and his career hanging in the balance? He may never play again with this persistent neck injury. I wouldn't if I were him.
He's earned it. Rashad Penny's earned it. 137 at 2 touchdowns against Houston, 135 at a touchdown against Chicago. Kind of had a dud in there against the Rams, which is a tough defense. You would have liked to see a little bit more. I'm not worried about Chris Carson at all. Just like you said, I'm not. That neck injury at his age, it's I've seen a lot of videos of him in the offseason of him training, and it's almost become like you see these muscle-bound guys, even with the McCaffrey thing, where you're like, maybe he's putting on too much muscle. Like Carson could be in that same, area, but Penny is stuck. If he's stuck with a less run-centric offense or a rustless Seahawks team, then I'm worried. But right now, I'm not worried. I think Penny is that guy. The only thing that really worries me is 1 targets the last 3 games, and DJ Dallas taking those 4 targets that Penny was getting in 2018 and 2019.
He's not any kind of quality receiver. He's an adequate receiver, right?
Yeah,
his ceiling as a receiver is Melvin Gordon, but I don't think he's going to be that. He wasn't a big-time receiver at the college level. What kind of receptions did he put up at San Diego State? He never reached 20 receptions, right? He was a total bell cow. He had 290 carries in 2017 at San Diego State, and less than 20 receptions, 19 receptions. So as a percentage of his overall touches, Rashad Penny has never been a receptions magnet or a target magnet at any level of football. And I think that Seattle would be wise to re-sign him to a 1-year deal. It's in his best interest to sign for a $5 million 1-year deal. That's what Seattle should do to save money. They have the rapport. They know what they have in Rashad Penny, that he can be the between-the-tackles grinder on 1st and 2nd down, and they can bring in DJ Dallas on 3rd down. There's no reason to invest in the position in the draft. Just ride Penny for 1 more year. You offer him $5 million, he'll take it, right? Most running backs that are free agents would take a 1-year, $5 million deal at this point, which is sad because it's such a violent position and they should be compensated more, but they're not. My fear is with Penny that enough time has accrued since they made the mistake of drafting him in 2018 in the 1st round. Right? It's just amazing that we have Michel and Penny, 2 first-round busts from 2018, finally looking like the collegiate versions of themselves after multiple NFL knee injuries. Modern medicine, man. You have Cam Akers coming back before anyone even considered the possibility from a torn Achilles. And now we have these running backs with chronic knee injuries looking fresh and stable and fluid as runners. And it's like, bravo, modern medicine. And watch Seattle fuck this up and draft a running back in the second or third round. Watch them do it. They will. They're set at receiver, right? Yeah. They will likely bring Russ back, and instead of investing in the defense and the offensive line, they're gonna go get a running back. I just feel it. God.
Timeout. What if this is the poor man's Leonard Fournette situation of 2021? He's exactly 1 year younger than Leonard Fournette. So you rewind a year with Fournette, injured coming in. He's coming off of multiple years of disappointment or whatever, year of disappointment. First round pick, size adjusted athlete. He showed that he could play early in his career, prolific in college. End of the season, he starts to break out. The only difference is Fournette had the playoffs, so you got to see playoff Lenny.
And the difference is Fournette is a slick receiver.
Correct. And so this is where your poor version comes in. It's literally it's your Leonard Fournette the penny version of Leonard Fournette.
It's like if you combined Fournette and Ronald Jones into one guy.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, this is
in a good way. In a good way.
Your value you're getting here with Penny is we're seeing it now. And the difference is the national media is not going to see it because he's not going to be in the playoffs. So if they don't draft somebody, Penny's just going to be sitting there. People are going to forget about the game he had against Houston and Detroit and Arizona down the stretch.
Oh, maybe they do draft someone, and we just assume that guy is the next guy and draft him at the end of the first round in rookie drafts like Keyshawn Vaughn, and then it turns out, no, he's not able to supplant Penny.
And then just like Fournette, he comes out in that second season after he starts to break out at the end of the year, and he's the value of the season. I've never loved Penny, but it's just like Odell Beckham. I never loved Odell Beckham at his price, but when the price got so damn low, you had to buy him. You had to do it.
You traded for Beckham in a league we're in.
Yep, I did.
And another league, we're in 2 leagues together. You're in the final. I like your chances. The Rooster is in the final of I'm rebuilding, okay? In that league, that's the league where I had Akers, Dobbins, and ETN. That's a true story. That's a real league. That's a real fantasy team that I have. And I still scraped and clawed. Were you impressed with at least my ability to just try to make something happen in that league and be competitive? I don't back down, dude.
Oh, yeah.
I don't give up.
You were fighting all year. You were fighting all year. I can't believe I don't know how I got Cooper Kupp and Aaron Rodgers this year. It was in that league, I traded for Cooper Kupp, and somebody traded me Cooper Kupp for Travis Etienne and Laviska Shenault. I can't quite remember who that was.
You did, I did. Yeah. I really wanted Etienne. I really wanted Etienne. And I feel good about him. I mean, now we have this devastating news, James Robinson, torn Achilles. But as we've seen with Marlon Mack and now Cam Akers, I'm expecting James Robinson to be back and make a full recovery and play in 2022. It's possible that James Robinson's actually of value because I already have all this ETN in Dynasty. It's not like I'm trying to go trade for him anyway. So when I saw Robinson go down, I wasn't like, oh, damn, now he's no longer a value. I was like, okay, this is fine. This is just more reason to be hopeful for Travis Etienne. The one unfortunate, the one negative impact on the one ADP impact that annoyed me was that now in seasonal leagues, this Robinson injury is going to make Travis Etienne harder to acquire, and that sucks.
Yep. This is the injury thing. You're going to have at least 5 months, probably 7 months. It's going to get a full recovery going into the season. But the positive note on ETN is you're going to get all the mini camps, all the summer camps, all the mandatory, all the training with Lawrence. They're going to be dialed in by the time mini camp August rolls around next year. And then Robinson's going to be like, "Hey guys, I'm healthy."
I'm going to have some Robinson. I'm definitely going to have some Robinson, but I'm also going to have a lot of ETN. And the issue is this offense is not an offense I can trust. Most of these offenses that we talk about, Cowboys, we know. Like, you know them when you see them. You know that the Chargers are a great offense. You want to invest in that offense. So that would be the reason why I wouldn't be going out and maybe trying to sneak in some James Robinson at the end of drafts because, okay, what's the upside? Okay, he's the starting running back for the Jaguars. The reason why we love ETN is because his skill set is so incredible. He is one of the great running back prospects of the last 10 years in terms of size, speed, athleticism, production, versatility, just incredible. That if they can go and draft an offensive lineman, Evan Neal perhaps, that's my hope. My hope is that though they will be tempted to go edge rusher with two incredible edge rushers in the draft, I prefer Kayvon Thibodeau, but you really you can't lose. Aiden Hutchinson's also great. I'm hoping that Jacksonville drafts Evan Neal and protects and creates the foundation for this offense that it desperately needs. And then they can go ahead and draft an edge rusher next year. If they don't bolster the offensive line in the draft and they invest in the defense, it's going to be very difficult to get excited about this Jaguars offense in any way. And it's only that next level skill set that allows me to continue to be enthusiastic about ETN.
Yeah, I'm excited about both. I think you can kind of put yourself to these different scenarios because they already fired Urban Meyer, and you're thinking this is probably the worst spot they're ever going to be in. And a name I've seen a lot of is Byron Leftwich, former quarterback from Jacksonville, now offensive coordinator in Tampa. If he brings that Tampa offense up to Jacksonville,
can't bring Brady.
Trevor Lawrence is okay. If he can bring what he's learned from Brady the last 2 years and start to sprinkle that on Trevor Lawrence, you got ETN, you got a Chenault there you can put him in that Godwin role. You're going to draft a guy. You could probably get Justin Ross, Trevor Lawrence's other teammate at Clemson, prolific receiver.
Let's just Clemson repurposed.
Round, you get Evan Neal early. I'm saying, like, you're looking at.
You got to get Evan Neal early. That is crucial.
Yeah, in that Fournette role, put ETN in that Fournette role, and you'll be happy.
Well, it's not going to be some facsimile of the Tampa Bay offense. We are going to just say no this offseason, extrapolating and wish casting offenses to be something that they're not.
Yeah.
That is a rule of thumb for 2022. I can tell you that right now.
We're early enough right now with these teams that don't have any. We got like 3 weeks.
I'm going to have a lot of backup running backs on great offenses. I'm going right back to Tony Pollard next year, and another guy I want is Keyshawn Vaughn. Keyshawn Vaughn may be my most rostered player in 2022. Is that crazy?
No.
Okay.
Bruce Arians says he thinks Keyshawn Vaughn can be a lead back. He said
he can.
He's an excellent back with skills, and he has great jump cut. He's got good hands. Even after the one drop yesterday, he's working very hard, and he can be a lead dog. Word for word from Bruce Arians.
We'll know it, man. We'll know it when minicamp rolls around. We'll get the reports from minicamp. That's it. I'm going to be so closely monitoring Keyshawn Vaughn's arrival in minicamp more than any other bit of offseason news. I'm also excited just to hear about Javonte Williams' growth and development and Antonio Gibson this summer. Those are two running backs I'll be monitoring closely, how they're performing in camp. But these offenses are bad. Shouldn't Dynasty Leaguers and all fantasy gamers be concerned about these offenses and just pull on the reins slightly, at least just make it taut when you're looking at Javonte Williams and evaluating Antonio Gibson?
Yes, but no at the same time because, again, like we talked about earlier with Jacksonville, because you're in the worst spot you could be in right now. You're looking at a Drew Lock in Denver right now with this defense is ready to go. They need a quarterback. Is it going to be like Nate List said, Rodgers? Is it going to be Deshaun Watson? Or are they going to go after that quarterback? I think Sam Howell fits in. We talked about him before the show. I think Sam Howell fits in both of these offenses perfectly fine. Like Washington or Denver.
There's no savior quarterback in the draft.
Agreed, 100%. But I think Sam Howell's professional enough that he could go into one of these systems and fit it better than a Drew Lock, a Taylor Heineke. He has enough pizzazz. Like he has enough of it to lift them a little bit enough to where they're not like, all right, we have 5 options in Denver and we can't feed any of them. And we just got 2 running backs back here. And in Washington, you're looking at Antonio Gibson, who's week after week, you never know what you're going to get. They can't get the ball out to Terry McLaurin. There's no answer really in this rookie class, but you should be worried about Javonte and Gibson. But if they can get, it's a really tough situation. It's very sticky.
Just temper expectations,
yeah.
and don't overload your roster, especially in best ball, with teams with complete and utter uncertainty at the quarterback position. So you probably don't want to have a team with both Williams and Gibson. That's probably not something you want to be doing, right? Aaron Jones tethered to Aaron Rodgers, that's something you want. He's been playing good. I think he's back. I think Aaron Jones is all the way back, and you can't play A.J. Dillon anymore because the high-value touches are going to Aaron Jones, and Devontae Adams is back to being his target hog self. He's a top 3 fantasy wide receiver. I'm excited about the Packers this week. I think it's going to be fireworks display in the sky.
Another one on Sunday Night Football. As a Viking fan, you'd expect me to say something positive about the Vikings, but this Packer team is as good a football team as there is in football right now. And Adams is going to continue to eat. Jones is going to continue to eat. It's in December.
I love Jones this week.
Yeah, I love Jones. Yeah.
Now, give us something that we may not know about the Vikings, because that's the team you follow most closely. Give us something. Some interesting nugget about the Vikings.
There's just no dog. They don't want it. They don't push the ball. Like, the biggest problem with the Vikings and what everybody in Minnesota is mad about is because this team refuses to just go. This team has all the talent in the world on both sides of the ball. They're really banged up, but they just don't go. Anthony
Barr doesn't have. Anthony Barr's making plays.
I'm saying as overall as a unit, like your leader's Kirk Cousins. Your leader, yes, is Barr, but they're missing Danielle Hunter. That's the guy that really brought it together. Everson Griffin. There's no real push. And from the coaching staff is more old school. There's nothing there that makes them take that next step.
There's nothing innovative about the coaching. That's right.
Nothing innovative about the coaching. They just think, oh, well, we can just plug this guy in and he'll do it. And they win. I think they're the only team in football that's had a lead in every single game this year. I want to say that's the stat. They've had 10 games where they've lost within 7 points. They can't finish. They get ahead and they're just like, nah, we'll be okay. It's okay.
Last week was a great week to stream wide receivers. What about streaming Marquez Valdez-Scantling this week?
Yep. Rashad Breeland.
That's the one that jumped out at me.
Yep. Breeland's gone, and now Dantzler's back in there playing corner. The last time Dantzler matched up with Marquez Valdez-Scantling was last year. Scantling 496 and a touchdown. Earlier this year, against Breeland, Valdez-Scantling 100 yards and a touchdown. It's lining up very well for Marquez Valdez-Scantling this week.
It's lining up better for Scantling than it is Boston Scott. I think Boston Scott's a trap. I think MVS outscores Boston Scott. That's my bold prediction for the week.
Ooh, I like that. The Scott situation scares me because
it's a total trap. I mean, it's a total trap. It's a touch trap. It's a matchup trap. It's a game script trap. It's every trap in the book. Road game. I mean, everything. It's the most trappy situation for a player I've ever seen, especially one of these fringy free square guys. I mean, it's just they don't throw to the running back except Kenny Gainwell. It's just there's so many tendencies, so many situational disadvantages that Boston Scott, and that's even assuming he's the touch leader, and it could be Jordan Howard.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I don't want any part of it, because who's to say they don't do the exact opposite of what they did before? Gainwell's been out the last 2 games. He hasn't, or out, but 0's the last 2 games.
Is he inactive? What's happening? Like, every time he plays, he looks good. It's weird. That's
what I'm saying. And the last time Sanders was out, then Gainwell's inactive, and he doesn't do it. He wasn't inactive. Sorry. Last time Sanders was out, he literally put up a 0. Remember, that was like week, whatever it was, when we thought this is the Gainwell week. And now we're looking, this is the Boston Scott week, and it turns out it's Jordan Howard.
Is it because that they know they're going to be running Boston Scott, and then they have to bring up another guy to play special teams, and then that crowds out one of the roster spots, and they have to deactivate Gainwell? If there were 54-man rosters, would this be fine? Fuck,
you got
going on?
I don't understand why Gainwell's not getting 8 to 10 touches a game. It doesn't make any sense to me why that hasn't been happening all season. Every game, that should be a forced thing.
So, also, every week we talk about there's one game that you have to bet on principle, and that's the home dog getting 10-plus points. Last week it was the Texans, and they not only covered, they won.
Yeah.
This week, it's the Jets. And the Jets are playing a little bit better, incrementally better. The Jets are getting 13 points at home against the Buccaneers with a depleted wide receiver core. This sets up for just such a trap game for the Buccaneers now that they've clinched a playoff spot. It's just, oh, man. It's every week. This is why, just on principle, home team getting 10-plus points, it doesn't matter who it is. It's always going to be a Texans or a Lions or a Jets, and you just fucking take it.
I don't love it.
Or is there something I'm missing here?
No, I don't love it, but you, just like you said, on principle, 13.5 is a massive number.
What? It's like crazy.
It's that, and then what is it? The Patriots are at 15.5. The Buffalo's at 14. But those are not at home dogs, right? But
yeah, those are home games. That's a totally different story.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, Zach Wilson's not playing bad. There's some hope for Zach. There's a glimmer of hope. Will Zach Wilson ever be top 5 quarterback in the league?
No.
Probably not. But could he be their quarterback for the foreseeable future and be good enough to at least secure the 5th-year option and be a significant upgrade over Sam Darnold? Sure.
Yeah. The question I ask is, can the Jets score 20 points against Tampa?
No.
Then they ain't going to cover.
Oh,
so I think Tampa,
it'd have to be like 17-28 or something.
And I don't think Tampa's last 6 games, 30, 38, 30, 33, 32, and then that goose egg against the Saints. I just don't see them going into New Orleans or into New York and not putting up over 30 points. Brady back to New York.
We could have some bad weather. This could be the week without Mike Evans, maybe, definitely without Chris Godwin, that they put up a measly, Cody, a measly 28 points. Measly.
I agree.
And, we talked about the Philadelphia backfield. Fuck is going on with Dallas Goedert, bro? What? I have him in so many of these leagues, and I'm starting him because you start 2 tight ends, and it's like it's an auto play. It's not like a consideration. Oh, do I play Schultz or Goddard? No, I'm playing both these guys. I've never even considered benching Goddard because if you do, he'll put up 25 points. He'll have 2 touchdowns. Man, it's not. What the fuck? What the fuck?
It's a situation. Yeah, it's the situation we always dreamed of. It's been here.
Yeah.
And it's like, how are you not doing this week after week after week? Like, there's only a handful of guys that can put up these 100-yard, 2-touchdown games, and he's one of them.
He's one of them.
He's the number one option in that offense, and They just like go away from him. I don't understand how you just go away from a guy that can dominate. You line him up on a linebacker and it's a win.
He already has a career high in receiving yards this year. His previous career high was 607. He's now at 731. He's going to go over 800 yards this year. His yards per reception is 15 plus.
Yep.
It's just that he's only had 4 touchdowns. He should be the only guy they ever look to in the red zone. How could you look at anyone else? There's no one else that's taller than 5'10" on this team. Yeah. I just don't understand how he doesn't have 6+ touchdowns at this point.
I don't know how he doesn't have double-digit targets every game. I love Quez Watkins, don't get me wrong, and there's not really a lot coming out of the backfield there, but you got Devonta Smith and you got Dallas Goedert. How is Dallas Goedert not getting double-digit targets every single game?
He was getting more targets a game 2 years ago.
Yeah.
There's just fewer pass attempts in this offense under Jalen Hurts. I mean, that is the problem. And that is always something to be cognizant of. In DFS, we want to double stack pocket passing quarterbacks that we know can be prolific, especially with top flight wide receivers. That's Joe Burrow. That's Tom Brady. And when you're drafting a best ball roster, you need to also consider that. Like, if you're going to draft Jalen Hurts, you need to stop at a single stack. And that goes for DFS and for full season best ball, where you draft Jalen Hurts, maybe you draft Devontae Smith, maybe you draft Dallas Goedert. That's it. Because the volume rushing quarterbacks can't support more than one receiver per week. Now, I know that Lamar Jackson has these games once in a while where, both Andrews and Brown go off, but if you go back and look, it's actually more likely that happens with Tyler Huntley than Lamar Jackson. Most weeks, it's just going to be one guy, and just got to try to pick the best value wide receiver to pair with that super mobile quarterback in best ball and in seasonal leagues. And anyone that drafted Jalen Hurts with Goddard and Devontae Smith created a suboptimal roster construction. Now, when I'm looking at the fantasy points per game, position by position, there's some surprising outcomes so far this year. Like, oh, wow, that guy's really outperforming his ADP. Oh, that guy hasn't been as good as I thought. But, I mean, I was shocked to see. Shocked. Christian Kirk outscoring Terry McLaurin in fantasy points per game.
It's crazy. It's crazy because you're looking at
poor Terry.
We wrote him in as a top 10 guy, automatic. He's going to get 140, 150 targets because the offense he's in, and it's just like,
stop drafting quarterbacks, stop drafting wide receivers with huge uncertainty at the quarterback position. That's DJ Moore. That's Terry McLaurin. We love them. We love Allen Robinson. But you shouldn't be drafting them in round 3, 4, 5. Get out of here. That was when you should have been drafting Chase and Higgins. Kupp and Woods. Come on, man. There's a lot of important takeaways from this season. And we just need to remember them. Right? 3 months from now, when we're on Underdog, UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code Underworld, when we're drafting, we have to remember that we learn these things. And someone has to write the shit down. Like a court stenographer. Knock it off. It's like, I like Jerry Jeudy. I like Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton is a beast. But if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, they're going to have to fall into the middle rounds, maybe late middle, end of the draft. And even then, what's the point? I mean, even then, there are going to be drafts next year where I'm just drafting players among like 5 to 7 top teams, and then I'm not drafting anyone else. Like, if you're not a top 10 offense, I don't want you. I'm going to have I'm gonna try it out. We'll see
On
what
principle.
happens.
On principle, you have to.
On principle, because we know there's all this roster fragility. We know there's this touch and target distribution fragility on a week-to-week basis. Now, it's been ramped up with COVID tests and guys missing weeks here and there. Understood. But there's just a lot of turnover every week, not just from COVID testing, with these rosters opening up opportunities for players on top offenses like Isaiah McKenzie and Byron Pringle. I mean, this week it was Isaiah McKenzie and Byron Pringle. Were you drafting these guys? No. Should you have? No. You couldn't have seen this coming. But Byron Pringle was technically the number 3 receiver on that Kansas City depth chart heading into the season. And you could have done worse. You could have done a lot worse than drafting Byron Pringle at the end of a best ball draft. And just for no other reason than Patrick Mahomes. For no other reason than Josh Allen. Right? I mean, Cole Beasley, turns out he was a value. Gabriel Davis was a value. Was I drafting Gabriel Davis? No. I was like, I don't want the 4th receiver on the Bills. He's going too early. Wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong to fade Mike Evans at cost. I was wrong to fade Gabriel Davis at cost. And what do they have in common? Top 5 offenses.
Yep. I mean, Boyd's going to back himself into an 800-yard season as well. Boyd's another guy that we were out on.
Tyler Boyd. I was in on Boyd, but still, I didn't have a lot of them. In that zone, you could get Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown was the perfect process play. And you look up, Antonio Brown is the wide receiver 6 in fantasy points per game.
He's a stud. He's so damn good. He's a top 10 overall still at age 33. I don't give a shit what anybody says.
Get him in Dynasty. He's been through so much, right? The fake vaccine card, he's getting suspended. He has a high ankle sprain, knee sprain, whatever it is. He's going crazy for 2 years. And yet you look up and he's still awesome. And he has the body type that will endure, where you could look up like Steve Smith, Jerry Rice. Age 36, this guy's still productive. Why not?
He takes care of himself.
That's the one thing he does, right? He's obsessive, compulsive, crazy person. But one of the things that he does obsess over is being good at football and getting himself in the best possible shape. So I have people trying to get I've been eliminated in some dynasty leagues. And I knew I didn't have a champion on my hands. And I have Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
And people try to trade for him. Low ball offer. Hey, 3rd rounder. Like, no. I'm going to compete next year, and Antonio Brown's going to be part of that.
He's played 6 games with Tom Brady since he got to Tampa with over 50% snap share. 6 games. 6 times. I don't know what's he been there for, maybe 15 to 20 games. He's missed a bunch, but whatever. When he plays 50%, 101 yards, 93 and a touchdown, 124 and 2, 63, 121 and 1, 138.
I could see Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham retiring in the same season.
Oh.
No, that's not because Beckham is going to be out of the league in a couple of years. It's because Antonio Brown could play another 3-4 years, and then for Allen Robinson, Odell Beckham, they would be in their early 30s at that point. And at that point, Odell Beckham Jr. is very different from Antonio Brown. Yeah. Odell is, if Antonio Brown had Odell Beckham's raw talent, I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Damn.
Right? Who knows? But these are different guys. These are different guys.
That's Jerry Wright. Yeah, that's
right. I mean, they're wired different, and the career arc of the Odell Beckham Jr. typically terminates around age 30, 31, where Antonio Brown is 35, 36. But
those are like what you just said, though. That's exactly what you just said. Those prototypes, like the Odell Beckham type is like the Moss. Moss burned out early. Brown is like a Rice. Rice lasted forever. 100% in line with what you just said.
Yeah, but I love Odell Beckham Jr. this week.
Oh,
Why? I mean, he gets the Ravens. He's in the Tee Higgins role. You don't have to overthink this. You're going to want some Stafford with Beckham and Kupp. That's a stack that I believe in this week. Now,
1,000.
It's going to be chalky because of what Burrow just did. So they're going to go, 1 + 1 = 2. We're going to go recreate the Burrow magic against the Ravens. So the ownership will be high. But, I mean, I'm playing him with all the confidence. If you're in the Super Bowl, it's a player that can help you win it all.
Kupp's going to be owned so much this week. This is going to be it could be an all-time week. No matter what the price is, this is like the week where everyone's going to have Kupp. Everybody.
And because Stafford will be able to do whatever he wants against that secondary, maybe he chooses to go deeper. Maybe he chooses to push the ball downfield to Van Jefferson and Beckham, and Kupp's usage isn't what we hoped it would be. Just because the secondary is so depleted. The beauty of Kupp is he can be relied on to get separation even against elite secondaries. Where it's a guy like Jefferson, a guy like Beckham, where it gets me more excited to play them against weak secondaries. Allen Robinson and Kenny Golladay are doomed because they're in their late 20s, and at least Allen Robinson has that free agency ripcord where he's not going to be back in Chicago. I almost am thinking that he's tanking the season to make sure he can get out of Chicago. He didn't want to come back. He didn't want him to franchise him. He was pissed, and we should have known. We should have known when he came back under the franchise tag begrudgingly. We should have known that this could have been one of those NBA situations where it's a star player. He doesn't want to come back. He hates his contract, and he's clearly out there going through the motions. You can't really tell like you can in the NBA, in the NFL, because if you go through the motions, you get severely injured. And now Allen Robinson has suffered some injuries this year. But these are similar-looking players, similar age, similar upside any given week. But Galladay's locked into this long-term contract, and you have no idea when he's ever going to get a quarterback that could support, wide receiver 1 numbers. Whereas Robinson, he could go a lot of different places. Where do you want to see him go in free agency?
Robinson's the most exciting out of these two. Kenny, I'm about out on Kenny Golladay. It's just pain.
He had a bad year, man. He had a bad year.
It's year after year, though.
Decided just to go through the motions after getting the bloated contract. It was a destination contract situation. He is not wired like Deebo Samuel. That we know. That is a certainty. Allen Robinson has endured the worst possible quarterback play. Where Brandon Cooks, everywhere he goes, he's with a Hall of Fame quarterback. Allen Robinson's the opposite. He's the anti-Brandon Cooks. Everywhere he goes, it's Nick Foles, it's Blake Bortles. It's not good. I would love to see. It would be beautiful to see him go somewhere with an elite quarterback. It would be interesting to see the Chargers decide, hey, instead of paying Mike Williams all this money, we already have devoted a lot of money to Keenan Allen. We don't want to carry another big wide receiver contract. We'll sign Allen Robinson instead to a 2-year deal. That would be cool. There's a lot of interesting possibilities with free agency where you have Mike Williams and Michael Gallup and Allen Robinson, all free agents.
Stay in division and rewind, because I like the Chargers. I like that landing spot with Herbert, but they have Mike.
Yeah, they're going to resign. I know they're going to resign Mike Williams. I don't run the Chargers. They're going to resign Mike Williams. They're going to extend it. We know that.
So go to Kansas City, where a year ago they wanted that number 2 guy. They wanted Juju. They offered Juju 1 year, $8 million, up to 11. Allen Robinson just got that big payday.
That's right. That would be the fit.
Oh my God.
Oh my
Oh
God. And they should have done it. They could have done it when the first year that Sammy Watkins and Allen Robinson were eligible for free agency, they paid Robinson more than Kansas City paid Sammy Watkins more than Chicago paid Allen Robinson. So Kansas City could have had Robinson for the same money they paid Sammy Watkins.
And they've been fighting it ever since. Kansas City's been fighting that number 2 role ever since. That's the spot. That's the spot that needs to happen. That's the spot Kansas City needs to happen. That's the spot we need as fantasy.
It's going to be either Gallup or Robinson there.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, either one of them.
It has to happen. You believe in Brandon Ayuk. I know you have a bunch of Brandon Ayuk in leagues, but he's now the number 3 with a rookie quarterback. And I don't love it. And I think it's interesting that we're going to have these 2 weeks to evaluate Trey Lance. I think that's a huge gift, especially to dynasty leaguers that are trying to figure out what to do with Brandon Ayuk, what to do with what is Trey Lance going to be. This 2-week window is really comforting. It's going to be nice, but you need to be ready to hold if it doesn't go well, and not panic.
Yep. I'm totally fine holding on Ayuk. Like, he's been wide receiver 17 from week 11 to week 15. He got out of the doghouse. I'm still buying him. I sold him early in the season. I regret it. But he found it. There was an article I read a couple weeks ago on Undercovered Ops that Shanahan sat down and talked to Ayuk, and they kind of just like figured their stuff out, and they kind of just like flipped the switch on Ayuk, and he's kind of just there. He's back. And that would really, if Lance can take that next step and he can be that guy, Ayuk, Kittle, and Debo would enter them into that top 10 offenses in the league if they can take that next step. We're talking top 5 if Lance can really take that next step.
If there's one speculative quarterback offense that I would draft with confidence in seasonal leagues in 2022, it's going to be San Francisco. It's like so many were burned by it this year. They were a year ahead. 2022 is the year to get Lance and to stack him up with Samuel, with Debo. Samuel and Debo. You should get Samuel and Debo. You could get Samuel, Cody, but you could also get Debo.
I heard Debo the running back and Samuel the receiver.
Yes! And Ayuk and Kittle. Boom. And now DJ Moore is the new Allen Robinson, that he's been snake bitten by quarterback play. So unless something radical changes, we're going to keep acquiring DJ Moore at value in Dynasty. Still believe, just like we were with Allen Robinson for all those years. And yet not really drafting much of him in seasonal leagues. I think that's a fine approach.
He just needs some competence. That's all they need down there in Carolina. The defense is kind of in the same situation as Denver, where it's there, it's ready. The defense is, the door's opening, they're about to kick it in, take that next step. And that offense, part of me really wonders if Matt Rule is back in 2022, because he goes 5-11 last year. He's going to end up 5-12 this year with this defense. McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie, and his quarterback and Sam Darnold. He goes out and gets Cam Newton. How is he not another failed college coach that just isn't being talked about? Like, because he's in Carolina, a small market.
Enough.
And he doesn't
enough
have
with
the
these
name.
college coaches. Enough. Big deal. Right? You turned around Baylor with some smoke and mirrors. Big deal. Big deal. You don't know anything about coaching professionals. What are you doing? What are you doing bringing him in there?
Joe Brady, and then he fires Joe Brady in the middle of the season as if it's Joe Brady's fault that Rule wanted Sam Darnold. Come on.
Let's talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown. How many weeks does St. Brown have 10-plus targets? Is it 3 straight weeks or 4 straight weeks?
Dude, he is – oh, my gosh. Oh, my God. He's I don't even know what to say about Amon-Ra St. Brown, man. Wide receiver 2 since week 13 when Hawkinson and Swift went down.
Yeah,
wide
he has
receiver
4 straight weeks with 11-plus targets.
Wide receiver 4 since week 11 when Josh Reynolds signs with Detroit. That's ridiculous.
Really?
Wide receiver 4 since Josh Reynolds signed with Detroit. Week 11.
He's had no target competition.
Exactly.
He and Jalen Waddle have enjoyed the least target competition this year. And then we saw on Monday Night Football, Jalen Waddle underneath, while Marshawn Lattimore is erasing Devontae Parker. That's what Marshawn Lattimore does. If you don't separate, if you're an outside clasher, he can erase you, and then targets funnel to the middle of the field and to Gesicki and Waddle. It's going to be difficult to justify drafting Waddle and St. Brown next year. It is. Because these are not top-tier offenses. I don't want Dolphins.
Yeah.
I don't want Lions unless it's DeAndre Swift.
This is exactly what you talked about 20 minutes ago with Tampa and Cincinnati and all these offenses. This is the exact Terry McLaurin situation. Jalen Waddle's your Terry McLaurin situation. This offense is not on the level that you want to own a lot of.
So should they invest in Tua? Should they give him the fifth-year option? Because that decision's going to have to it's going to come due soon.
I don't know how you can't. I've never been a Tua supporter or vouched for him, but I don't know how you can't give him that positivity, because early in the season, remember, it was, that was tough times, 1-7. Do we trust him? Are we going to trade for Deshaun Watson? And he flips the switch, and he pretty much leads this team back to where they're at now in that 7th seed in the AFC.
They're 8-7. They could make the playoffs. I think that they have to commit to him at this point. They have to, even though I think that he's a game manager plus. I don't think he's ever going to be a prolific passer, but when you look at the quarterbacks available in this 2022 draft class, you're not inspired by any of these guys. Like, is Carolina going to be the first team to actually swallow hard and push the button on quarterback?
I think so.
Who are they going to take?
I think so. From what I've read and what I've saw, the guys that they're narrowing in on are Matt Corral and Sam Howell. Do I think that should be the guy? No. I think what's happening right now
who
is
should be the guy?
The rise of Kenny Pickett and being that guy we see year after year that transfers or whatever and rises. Kenny Pickett's been in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett should be that guy that should go the highest. He should be the guy that's in that Burrow situation. I'm not saying he's as good as Burrow. He's not. He's not going to go top 5, whatever. But he should be the guy that goes to Carolina.
Who's going to win the Heisman this year?
They already had that. That was oh geez, you caught me. Aiden Hutchinson won it.
Did he?
Yeah, he won it. Was that last week? Last weekend?
Did I ask a question that already happened?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't follow college football. We gotta edit that. We gotta edit that out. Oh my God. We gotta let the get that. That goes in the outtakes.
You caught me. I was like,
oh my God.
Did I dream of that?
Wait, why did they give out the Heisman before the season's over?
They wanted it to be a regular season award.
Oh. Okay.
It's okay.
So was Pickett even in consideration? He must have been.
Yeah. He was in the Final Four.
Okay. Few. Who were the Final Four? Do you remember?
It was Hutchinson. God, now you caught me. It was Hutchinson. It was Pickett. It was Bryce Young.
Oh.
And C.J. Stroud. No. Bryce Young won it. God damn. I thought Aiden won it.
Wait a second.
I was wrong.
You got it wrong?
Bryce.
I don't feel bad anymore.
Yeah, I got it wrong.
This was a tough year. Listen, in fairness to us, this was a tough year to figure out the whole Heisman thing.
I'm mad I got that wrong.
I can't believe that they don't wait until bowls are over. What if a guy has an awesome bowl game?
Yeah.
That's dumb. Come on, college football. Take your head out of your ass. Let's go. Come on, let's go. Yeah. How about we take our heads out of our ass and know who won the Heisman? How about that?
Yeah, no shit.
Now, Casey Hayward could miss Week 17. Is that a big deal?
No,
but he's top 5 in our cornerback rankings.
Yeah, but again, you're looking at a guy that's 5'10" going against a guy that's 6'5". Cornerback rankings and cornerback matchups are built different. So you can see a guy like there's certain guys like Ramsey. Ramsey can match up on anybody. Alexander can match up on anybody. Byron Murphy, if they wanted him to, could match up on anybody. Casey Hayward, the guys that he has struggled with, he hasn't really struggled, but it's been these big body clashers, these red zone targets, Gallup, Sutton, Parker. He hasn't really struggled, but those are the guys.
You think Pittman's a good play this week?
I think Pittman's a fine play. Trayvon Mullen was going to come back. He got hurt. He's out. They're pretty beat up outside of Casey Hayward. And if Hayward doesn't play, then it's really Pittman's a smash.
What about Zay Jones? He was the leading receiver last week for the Raiders.
Yeah, that's no Bryan Edwards, no Waller. I mean, I cannot believe what this Raiders team just really has been on offense, like in fantasy. Like, I had pretty high expectations. I think we all did with Bryan Edwards and obviously Ruggs and all that situation or whatever. But Zay Jones, I mean, that was the guy week 0, week 1. I was talking about Zay Jones and I was talking about KJ Osborne as being those wide receiver 3s that would come in on undercover ops. That was that first episode, if you remember.
Ooh, look at
and
you.
He scored that touchdown on Monday Night Football week 1, and it was like, dude, Zay Jones is the guy. And it's just been entirely disappointing what the Raiders have done. But the positive with Zay Jones is Carr has said multiple times, he's the hardest worker in the room, hardest worker on the team. He's still 26 and a half years old. He had a 150-point fantasy season in Buffalo a few years ago, faded away. Now he's back. He's working hard. I mean, you remember how prolific he was at East Carolina? 1,700 yards his senior season?
Yeah, I know.
Zay Jones can be a guy. He can fill in. They went out and got Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson hasn't done a damn thing. You put Zay Jones in that Nelson Aguilar, that Henry Ruggs role, I think he can carve out a role going forward and continue to build on it.
We're going to talk more in 2022 about quarterback wide receiver fit. We know where Derek Carr feels comfortable throwing, the middle of the field. But we look back and say, oh, well, Hunter Renfrow, he's a 650 yards per season wide receiver. That's what he is. He's been like a metronome every year. That's what he does. That's what he'll do again this year. But there's upside there if you have one of these quarterbacks that keeps the ball short in the middle of the field, and that's Derek Carr. So there was underreported upside with Hunter Renfrow. Now you look up, and he's 14 catches away from being the single-season Raiders record holder ahead of Jerry Rice and Tim Brown.
And he's wide receiver 12. Like, what? Who could have ever, like, you're talking Tim Brown is a legend. Jerry Rice, legend. And you just got this little guy, this Wes Welker-looking guy that is outperforming Darren Waller. That we thought, he's the closest that can beat out Kelsey. Edwards, prolific athlete. Moreau, prolific athlete. All these guys, it's Renfrow that's really taken it and went to the next level, and he's got that rapport down with Carr that you rarely see. It's impressive.
More fantasy points this year than Tee Higgins. Now, in more games, Tee Higgins, more fantasy points per game. Tee Higgins is a wide receiver 11 in fantasy points per game, but technically more fantasy points because he's played all the games this year than even Tee Higgins. And Tee Higgins is awesome. When you look up, 16 fantasy points per game is not moving the needle at the wide receiver position. Really got to get up to 18 fantasy points a game before you're really moving the needle.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about Higgins is he does have the volatility, and we love the volatility at the wide receiver position because when he hits big. 28 points, 23 points, 43 points. Where should Tee Higgins be ranked in Dynasty?
I mean, tethered to Joe Burrow, Chase, the next 2 years minimum, probably 6. I don't see how you can reasonably have Higgins outside the top 10. I don't see it because you got 2 years minimum with Joe Burrow and Chase, probably going to be 6+. Like, you got to feel good if you're a Cincinnati fan. You're looking early 2000s hyper Hushmanzada Ocho Cinco vibes right here.
Yeah.
With this.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
It would be hard to move him ahead of Diggs, given that Diggs is still just 27. He has 2 insanely productive seasons ahead of him, potentially league-winning seasons.
Yeah.
But Devontae Adams just turned 29.
Yeah.
And Tyreek Hill does not have the profile of a wide receiver that is super productive for an extended period of time. These speedsters, they lose a step once they get into their late 20s, and it changes the entire math of how they win on the football field. So you look at Tee Higgins, you could easily see him moving up to wide receiver 7 in Dynasty cleanly, easily, without even a major shift. Just seeing the natural decline of players as they travel along the age-adjusted production curve. And now that Davante Adams is 2 years past the age apex, he has one fantasy-relevant week left, week 17, and next thing we're going to be talking about Davante Adams as a 29.5-year-old wide receiver in the summer, heading into probably his final year as a locked-in top 10 wide receiver for fantasy football. And knowing that Tee Higgins isn't even 23 yet, I mean, it's time. It's time. He showed the ceiling, right?
Yeah.
It's fine. Like, we haven't met the number 10, 11 receiver at this point. We haven't seen the ceiling yet. We wanted him to show the ceiling. He shows the ceiling. And then that's when you see the uptick. Instead of speculating on when the spike week is going to come, when the ceiling is going to reveal itself, you could just be patient and let it happen. It happened, and then you're going to see the uptick, and that's how it works. There's been way too many instances where fantasy gamers and dynasty leaguers in particular have got out too far over their skis on a receiver, assuming that a big ceiling performance was coming. It never comes. And then eventually they have to unwind the speculation that was built into that player's dynasty value and pull him down. That doesn't happen with our dynasty rankings because they're just so fucking rational, and they're based on a player's age and their production above and beyond the stream season after season. And the most recent season being the most powerful driver of the lifetime value and next season's projected fantasy points. And we're going to have Chase and Higgins projected to be big-time scorers. The question will be, can Burrow sustain 2 wide receiver 1s in fantasy football? I think after last week, the answer is absolutely yes, that he has these 500-yard games in him. So just go ahead and write in Burrow and Chase as top 12 wide receivers in fantasy football. Then the question becomes, where is Tyler Boyd? If they pull Boyd out of this offense, then there's no question. But with Boyd in the offense, he has enough gravitational pull to take targets away from those guys where then it actually does become a debate.
Yeah. I mean, he has 2 years left on his contract, very dead cap friendly. They could move him and it wouldn't hurt them at all. But he's in his prime. The ability he has to
they have the offense fully dialed in. What the fuck? That would be crazy to me. If they were to cut him to save money, which would be a very Bengals thing to do, a very Mike Brown thing to do, but to ruin what is the best talent configuration of a wide receiver group in the NFL, just when Joe Burrow is finally climaxing.
You can't do it. This is a better receiver core than Dallas right now.
He plays a necessary role in this offense, but because he's going to be there next year, he does diminish the ceiling of Chase and Higgins, where you're probably not going to be drafting them both in the top 12 because of the presence of Boyd. But boy, oh boy, you want all three. You just want to pound all three and not worry about the precise target distribution. You just know this is an offense that you want exposure to, and you just want to gobble them up. That's it. That's all.
And for the same reason that you liked Gallup is the same reason you like Boyd, because as situations arise, especially now with COVID and all that stuff, like he can play wide receiver too. He has that ability. And so if anything ever happened, like when you're playing underdog and you're stacking and you go, Burrow, Chase, You throw Boyd in there late. Like, that's why you do that, because he has that talent, and that's really what makes this the best receiving core in football.
I think that Burrow will be an even better double stack candidate for best ball than Brady. I feel better about Chase, Higgins, and Boyd than I do Godwin coming back from an ACL tear, Mike Evans well past the age apex, and
AB.
Antonio Brown always unhinged and unpredictable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And Dak Prescott is finally showing his ceiling. It just so happened to be in the week where Joe Burrow showed his ceiling. And because Joe Burrow is younger, Joe Burrow continues to gain ground on Dak and Dynasty. These guys are converging. It's kind of fun to watch Burrow and Dak converge, especially as Dak is becoming a pocket passer. You can just stop thinking about Dak Prescott as a mobile quarterback. He's really not. And at some point, Russell Wilson's not going to be considered that anymore either. My big question is not how good are the Bengals going to be, how good are the Cowboys going to be. They're going to be great next year. I do have questions about Seattle. Like, is this a great offense?
I'm scared of Seattle right now. I'm scared what's going to happen, because I think it's so obvious that nobody has a clue. Because you see Pete Carroll come out and he's like, oh, I don't think there's very many issues at all. And it's like, there's clearly issues, man. Like, there's clearly things going on that you obviously can't see or something. But what's going to happen? Is Russ gone? Is Pete gone? Do they clean house? Like, is this offense great? Of course it's great if they let it happen.
Okay.
If they let it happen. There's talent everywhere in this offense. You have to let it happen. It's just kind of like with Minnesota, like you said earlier. What's wrong with Minnesota? They don't really let them go. If they really let them go, that Vikings offense would average 35 points a game, but they don't really let them go. Same thing with Russ. It's been his whole career, though. They just don't let him go.
They don't give him a left tackle. They don't give him an offensive line. He's never had an above-average offensive line in his career. Just like DJ Moore's never had an above-average quarterback, and Allen Robinson's never had an above-average quarterback. It's like the league is conspiring against Russell Wilson. It'll be nice to see Pete Carroll gone. That'll be nice. That'll be nice. So looking at deeper wide receiver prospects and players for Dynasty, I have Josh Palmer in a bunch of leagues. I have Josh Palmer in a league where we cut down to 16 players, and I'm convinced that I'm going to be keeping him because I just want that exposure. Yep. Like, Josh Palmer is going to be one of my most rostered players next year based on essentially the Gabe Davis corollary, where if you sit down and you divide up a reasonable target distribution, there's no way that based on the as-is target shares in week one that Josh Palmer would pay off at ADP. But that's not why you draft him. You draft him because he's the number 3 receiver with juice and football abilities tethered to Justin Herbert. Are you good at football? Yes. Are you part of a prolific offense? Yes. Are you going to get, is there some path for you to get opportunities? Yes. Okay, draft that guy. Yep. Draft him a round or two ahead of ADP. Go ahead. Don't blink.
And he delivers. Remember back in like June, we talked on the Breakout Finder show about Josh Palmer specifically because he popped a little bit on the Breakout Finder, but he's almost a mirror of Keenan Allen from a size, metric, draft capital, age standpoint when he came out. And the difference simply is Josh Palmer is a better athlete. As odd as that sounds, Keenan's not a great athlete. And now he's learning from Keenan Allen with Herbert. More opportunities are coming.
Oh, yeah.
Years after year. Keenan Allen turns 30 this next year. And Guyton was out this last week, but Josh Palmer's all playing Guyton. You even heard it from Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler's like, Josh Palmer's good. You hear those internal grumblings. That's the same thing with Gabe Davis.
Why we have Austin Eckler on the show?
Gabe Davis said, not Gabe Davis, the coaches, the players in Buffalo said last year, Gabe Davis is a dude. He's going to be a stud in this league. You hear those grumblings in Buffalo, just what you just said. You hear those grumblings from Eckler, from inside of the Chargers. I think he belongs in that Amon-Ra St. Brown area. St. Brown's going to get more competition next year. That's the problem.
St. Brown's ADP is going to be like 8 rounds
and,
earlier than Josh Palmer.
And Palmer, the opportunities are coming over the next few years, whereas St. Brown, they're going to add guys next to him.
Yeah.
They're going to add guys next to him.
That's the perfect dichotomy to think about. These two guys, they had similar draft capital, but the breakout finder preferred Josh Palmer, and that was shocking. It was similar to the Deontay Johnson, where you look at their profiles, and no individual metric really pops, but together, when you have this special teams production, and you have this size-adjusted athleticism, and this production at a particular age, these metrics in conjunction with each other, they tell a story that the algorithm can read that we as humans can't. That was true with Deontay Johnson with the breakout finder and with Josh Palmer, which is why Nate went on the Sonic Truth Show and said, this is the Deontay Johnson of this class. Now, as it turns out, there really isn't a Deontay Johnson in this class, but if you had to pick of the guy that would be the closest, many wanted it to be Dwayne Eskridge. It ain't Dwayne Eskridge. It's Josh Palmer. Now, Isaiah McKenzie was the streamer of the week at wide receiver, just like he was the Justin Jackson of wide receivers last week. Cole Beasley, not vaccinated. He went to social media and admitted this. Because of that, it's going to be more difficult for him to get cleared for week 17 if Beasley misses. Just so if we don't know yet, when this drops, we don't know if Beasley's going to clear or not. Maybe he's already cleared. Who knows?
Odds are he's not.
Odds are it's 50-50. I don't know what the odds are. 45-55. But there's a good chance, regardless, he's not cleared. Go right back to McKenzie because Sanders is not. He's not. He's just not. It's yes, McKenzie, go back to him.
Also Beasley, Gabe Davis. Davis was out. What if Davis is back? If Beasley
Davis is back.
Doesn't clear.
That's right.
No,
so Davis, okay, but this is why this is an interesting question. Because the role will be the same. If Beasley's out, they're not going to play Davis in the slot. He's going to have the same role, whether Davis plays or not. So do you play him based on the role, or do you fade him because there's more target competition? That's the question.
I think I would fade him because I think Gabe Davis has a higher opportunity role, opportunity chances. Just that connection with Josh Allen's different. Whereas like this week it was Emmanuel Sanders just isn't great.
He's
Isaiah
washed.
McKenzie comes
Emmanuel Sanders looks great. He's in great shape. Gorgeous human being. Washed.
McKenzie's a hyper athlete. He's fast. I get that, but I think you're point chasing. I think it's point chasing. If Gabe comes back, you're point chasing to get McKenzie.
All right, you're probably right. Better off going with Donovan Peoples-Jones.
God, I love Peoples-Jones. We've loved him all year. I mean, we love all these guys, in this Schwartz, Felton, Peoples-Jones, but opportunities.
It's the Baker Mayfield problem. If you're operating over the middle, if you're Austin Hooper, if you're Jarvis Landry, then you're going to have a perfectly reasonable catch rate with Baker Mayfield. But if you play in the perimeter, ask Odell Beckham Jr., it's not happening. Right? There's a reason why Baker Mayfield loved throwing to Mark Andrews at Oklahoma. It's the same thing, man. The guy, if you see, it's just comical at this point to see how incompetent he is throwing to the outside.
Oh, it's terrible. The reason they lost that game is because of Baker. If they run that ball 4 more times, they got to the 50-yard line with like a minute left. If they run that ball 4 more times, they kick a field goal and they beat the Packers in Lambeau. But they put it on Baker's arm. Baker's battling. I respect Baker. I love him, but he's so beat up.
You love him.
I'm talking about like when he came out, his mentality, I thought he had the moxie to do it, but I think he's just so beat up. The pain has like hindered his timing, his throwing motion. He can't make those 5-yard out throws. He can't do it. You got Pittsburgh, Cincinnati coming up. Those are tough.
He's a backup quarterback. He's a backup. He's a backup. He's a quality backup. He's a guy you should want to pay to be one of the highest priced backups in the league and willingly Go out and invest in a Baker Mayfield as your backup. That's something you should do. Anand and Dury and I talk about this, that NFL teams don't spend enough on their backup quarterback. They need to prioritize it in free agency. That would be Baker Mayfield. But he's not a starter in the league long term. You can't build a franchise around. They can't pay this guy to be a starter. That's such a mistake. As an analytically driven front office, I can't imagine Cleveland falling for this. But then how could they? What are their alternatives? They're a professional football team. It would be a huge downgrade to not bring him back. They're fucking so stuck. And he has all these endorsements. He's on every other commercial. How the hell? He has the best agent in the world. Got him drafted number 1 overall, which at 6 foot tall, given that Drew Brees was the first pick in the second round with a similar stature, was high, right? Historically high to draft Baker Mayfield at the 101. That wasn't necessarily that smart. And then the reason why that John Dorsey gave was that he liked his woot woot. Like he liked that he does have a great attitude. He liked his attitude. Well, at the quarterback position, in the top 10 of the NFL draft, whether it be defensive back, quarterback, left tackle, just attitude ain't enough. Okay, it's just not enough. Okay, but the team is fucked. His agent's too good. Baker Mayfield's agent is the best agent in the history of sports. He got him drafted 101, and he's on every other commercial. I mean, who endorses Subway and Blimpie, right? And Mike's, Jersey Mike's. I mean, every sandwich company wants that. How? What did he do to be the greatest spokesman in the history of football? I don't understand it. Good for him, I guess, but he doesn't need the money. He can go to the best team. He can go to Kansas City, back up Mahomes, his buddy from Texas Tech in the Big 12, and maybe Mahomes gets an injury and he wins a championship that way. He's better off doing that and just keep cashing those endorsement checks.
All right, I got 2 questions for you, 2-parter. Starting the franchise today, 100% healthy, Tua or Baker Mayfield?
Tua Tagovailoa is slightly better. He's slightly better. He's more versatile. He's a better runner, better scrambler. And I think he has a bit more arm talent, especially throwing to the perimeter and the boundary. So I would go Tua, but Tua's on that Baker Mayfield track. Has Baker Mayfield even had a stretch the last 10 games like Tua's had where he's helped to propel his team to the playoffs? It's been him. Yeah. Like last year in the second half, Baker Mayfield had a similar stretch, but I don't think it was this many games, and it wasn't as impressive.
No, because it's run based. They have a strong running game. That's the whole basis of that offense is run the ball, play action. That's what Baker does. With that though, you're the GM of the Browns. Jimmy Garoppolo or Baker Mayfield? You paying Baker, or are you going to go get Jimmy? Jimmy's got $1.4 million dead cap next year. If Lance takes over, do you go get Jimmy or do you pay Baker?
Oh God, Jimmy Garoppolo is another backup quarterback. What you're not solving for anything. I would rather bring in Jimmy for less money and fewer years on the contract. And
I think so.
Not be forced into an albatross contract, paying a backup starter money for an extended period of time. You just can't get in that situation. The Colts might be in that situation with Carson Wentz if he keeps playing well, but Carson Wentz looks like he's landed on the COVID list. This just broke.
Just now?
Breaking news. In the chat. We're taking the chat's word for it.
Colts placed Carson Wentz on reserve COVID. He's unvaccinated. That's 10 days.
You just talked over the sounder. I ran the breaking news sounder. You're going to say it again.
I said they just placed him on. He's unvaccinated. That's 10 days. He's out.
He's out for the next 2 weeks?
What's 10 days put him at? 10 days put him at...
All right.
Yeah, mid next week. Damn.
The clock is ticking. Listen. Wait. If he misses the next 2 weeks, will his snap percentage fall below the threshold
it
needed for them to send a first rounder to Philadelphia? No.
It hit last week. He clinched it last week.
Oh, he clinched. It's been clinched.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my God, it's been. Oh wow. See,
isn't that wild?
That you had that top of. Thank you. This is again. This is why you're the best. You knew that. So they're gonna have to give up a first round pick for a guy that may be out the next 2 weeks. But even if they lose the next 2 weeks, that would put them at 9-8. They're no longer a lock to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they need some things to go wrong. They need, Chargers,
no.
Baltimore, Raiders, Miami, all 8-7.
They're gonna make. He's gonna make it back. He'll play. He's gonna play week 18. He's gonna play week 18. He's gonna have to. He's gonna get cleared. There's no way.
They got Raiders this week, Jacksonville next week, so they'll beat Jacksonville. They just need to win one, and they should be in. So yeah, they'll be fine. That's still though. They
get Jacksonville week 18. So even if he doesn't play week 18, they'll still win.
Yep.
Maybe it's at Jacksonville. Oh my God, that game is going to be in doubt if he doesn't play.
They could run the ball 47 times and they'll beat Jacksonville.
It's going to be on Jonathan Taylor's shoulders, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how it should be. That really is how it should be.
Wow.
These NFL teams with their quarterback conundrums. Think about Pittsburgh. What is Pittsburgh going to do next year? Is it going to be the Dwayne Haskins show?
God, I hope not.
And if it is, how can you feel good about Chase Claypool or even Deontay Johnson in Dynasty? This is another reason why you'd rather have Tee Higgins than Deontay Johnson in Dynasty. Tee Higgins has Burrow, and Deontay Johnson has...
The last mock I did, Kenny Pickett. But I don't know if they're... It's going to be close. It's going to be close if they can get him. That'd be the only way. They need a young gunslinger. They need a guy that can get the ball out there. If they miss out on Rodgers and they miss out on a rookie that has upside like a Pickett fits.
If you're Rodgers, you don't want to go to Pittsburgh. Their defense isn't good enough. You want to go to Denver.
Yeah, agreed. But if they resort to Haskins or Rudolph, oh my gosh, Deontay and Claypool are in trouble. But I don't think they got something.
It's possible that Haskins takes a step forward. It's possible.
But even if he does, there's no way he's going to be able to feed Claypool, Deontay, Freiermuth. Someone's dead.
They need Pickett so bad because Pickett is pro ready.
He's about pro ready. He's from Pittsburgh. He fits that mold. Just like Freiermuth early in the season, when I was telling you, like this entire franchise, this entire city is behind Freiermuth. Pickett already has the town of Pittsburgh behind him. He's been there for 4 years.
They need to find a way to get him. They're going to trade up for him. That's what's going to happen. They're going to trade up for him.
They might have to.
That's what's going to happen. That's what and this obsession with getting the hometown kid might help them with Carolina going with Sam Howell.
They might have to trade up to right now it'd be like the 8 spot with the Giants to get ahead of Washington, Atlanta, Denver.
Pickett's just going to keep rising up.
I think so.
We have Freiermuth ranked ahead of Noah Fant in Dynasty. And that's not anyone's feelings. That's just what the numbers are telling us. That's where he should be. And when you think it through, both he and Fant have this huge quarterback uncertainty hanging over them. Will they get Rodgers? Probably not. But that makes sense, right? It's just weird in that Fant was a first rounder and he has one of these size-adjusted athletic specimens. But, I mean, I'd rather have Freiermuth. I would.
Yeah.
I would.
It's
amazing how often I agree with what the math and the algorithms are telling us to do. I mean, it's like I'm like in lockstep. I'm like, yes, it sounds crazy. I know that's weird, but I agree.
I'm less worried about Freiermuth being QB dependent like a Fant, and there's so many weapons there. Like Freiermuth built himself into this team, into this offense. He's going to be that guy in Pittsburgh regardless if Ben's there or not. Fant, we've already seen Okoye-Bunam, and then all these receivers. Like, I trust a Freiermuth more, even though the athleticism and everything says Fant. Freiermuth, I think, just sticks.
I think it might be Okoye-Bunam. That's the latest pronunciation that I heard in the broadcast. Okoye-Bunam, which I like. I like that too. I like them all. I like all.
Okoye-Bunam.
Similar draft capital and prospect profile to Freiermuth is Hunter Long. And Mike Gesicki has done one of the great disappearing acts. Like last week, where were you? Like I expected Marshawn Lattimore to lock up Devontae Parker thinking, okay, we're going to see some Mike Gesicki. And then again, this is why they didn't commit to him.
Yep.
Process the ramifications of the Miami Dolphins not committing to Mike Gesicki necessarily means, it's going to be the Hunter Long show next year. He's perfectly poised, has that year to develop, and can come in the second year when tight ends are much more likely to produce. I'm loving Hunter Long, man. I think he's going to be my late round sleeper this year.
Yep. That's like we talked about in the preseason, only guy in Player Profiler comparable to Jason Witten. He's gotten the 30% snap shares the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm. He's working his way in there.
Not so much. He had a couple targets against the Giants, the Jets, one target each game. He was hurt early in the season. That kind of hampered him a lot. But we knew coming in it was Gesicki's show this year. And next year's the year, take that next step. There's like 6 tight ends in this room that, as a rookie, you have.
The only issue is, and the lesson was, you want these tight ends on top offenses. You want Schultz. You want Dawson Knox. The issue is, we're not expecting this offense to take a step forward. It still might, though. The thing is, Miami's an interesting case because it's one of the very few offenses where it's unlikely, but there's still a reasonable probability that it does take a major step forward, and that this is let's say at least a top 15 offense in the league next year. It's very possible.
Yes. I'd like to see them address the offensive line, maybe add a tailback, and I think that would help them take the next step. I think there's enough weapons at receiver that they'll be fine. I can
pound
see
offensive line, please. Miami, Can you hear me? Just draft every offensive lineman that you see on your board. If he's available, just draft him. That's their need. That's all. It's like a glaring. The fact that they've come this far with the rebuild and it's still a glaring need after passing on Penei Sewell, it's just shame on Miami. Shame on that front office. But they can still fix it. This is still is this a reasonably strong offensive line class in 2022?
Yes, reasonably strong. There's enough guys there that you can build this offensive line for the first 2 rounds.
Do you think Brevin Jordan could be the Dawson Knox of 2022? Yes, but I mean, Brevin Jordan's another one. He's been breaking out a lot more than Hunter Long, but that's not an offense I want exposure to either.
That's just opportunity. That's the same thing, though, with Nico. We wanted Nico to do it, and it's been actually Brevin that came back, and he's doing it.
He looks
he's
good.
Targets. Exactly. The thing is he's just a little slight. He's 240 pounds, and it's like an Evan Ingram type of a tight end. Ingram's a little smaller, but this is how Brevin was. Brevin, as a freshman at Miami, dominated. He went to Miami. He is a dude. He's a talented tight end. And he's actually playing good. You got Davis Mills. You got Chris Conley. I mean, look who he's playing with.
He was 4 for 4 last week.
Look who he's playing with, and he's doing this.
They're playing him in the slot. Like his slot rate and lined up out wide is one of the highest among tight ends the last 5-6 weeks.
It's exciting.
Not as high as Kyle Pitts. I mean, he's not Kyle Pitts level wide receiver usage, but no one is. I mean, Kyle Pitts, because he hasn't scored any touchdowns, is the most obvious smash. I mean, if you're going to have to draft a tight end that's not in one of these top offenses, just go Kyle Pitts, man. Just pay up. Pay up. I mean, you're going to have to pay less than you would have if it had you scored a bunch of touchdowns. So just bank the discount and eat the ADP because he's still No one's going to give up on Kyle Pitts after 1 year because they're going to look back and they're going to say, oh, wow, look at this target share. Look at the air yard share. Oh, this guy actually wasn't that bad. So fantasy gamers are sophisticated enough not to just chase last year's fantasy points, but you'll still get a discount on him. I still think you will. I want him. Next year is the year to get him.
Yeah. Touchdown bounce back. He's 127 yards away from, we talked about this in the Breakup Finder episode we did in June, 127 yards away from breaking Mike Ditka's all-time rookie receiving record from tight ends.
Is he?
Yeah. Ditka had 1,076. Pitts is at
Renfrow
949.
breaking a franchise record. Pitts breaking an all-time record because of the goddamn extra game. They're all taking advantage of this new schedule. That's what it is. It's a schedule trick.
The Ditka one was actually in
Poor
14
Mike
games,
Ditka.
which makes it more impressive. Ditka did it in 14 games.
Oh, see?
Because that was back in before the 70s when they played 14
Ditka.
instead of 16. Isn't that
14
impressive?
games for Ditka. You're no Ditka, Kyle. You have Kyle? Kyle? Hey, Kyle? Or Ditka? Come on. Hero RB is going to be the consensus underworld tactic. I think there's going to be a lot of people going 0 RB based on all based on how tumultuous this season was. It's going to inspire a lot of 0 RB drafters next year. But I think that we're going to take a more reasonable and pragmatic approach and say, hey, we understand this was a moment in time when so many players like Austin Eckler missed a key week of the fantasy playoffs, and there was Justin Jackson ready to smash and launch teams into the fantasy championship game. That's less likely to happen next year. I think injuries to all these key players, especially first-round picks, will be less likely next year. And it all points to Hero RB being the way to go. Just make sure you get a running back in round 1 or 2. Just get one guy, one foundational running back to build around, and then you can go wild with your wide receivers. I don't give a fuck what you do.
I just want the number 1 pick. That's it. Give me Jonathan Taylor.
Yes.
And let's play football.
Yes, just get you.
That's all.
Yes.
Give me Jonathan Taylor, and I'll figure the rest out. Even if you
end up with DeAndre Swift in the first round, you're good. That's a win too.
I'm good the rest of the way. Just ship it. Hero RB, take one guy, build the team out.
Just make sure that guy has the size and the athletic profile and the all-purpose skill set. Just make sure, whether it's Antonio Gibson, whatever it is, just get a guy with incredible upside to build around, ideally on a better team than Antonio Gibson, though. That's the thing, right?
Yeah,
that's the one caveat. Maybe a better team than Gibson, but get that guy and ship it.
Fuck.
Who is this week's Rex Burkhead and Justin Jackson?
God, it's so tough. We just saw this Carson Wentz thing come out. It's so tough so early in the week. But if I had to go one, it's looking a lot like a Boston Scott, Jordan Howard.
No.
The sneaky one that I think you could look at.
Sneakier. Wait, yeah, my producer's in my ear. Sneakier, Cody. Go sneakier.
Jonathan Williams.
Jonathan Williams. Why?
That toe, Gibson's toe, 30% snap share this last week.
Oh.
If they torn him down, they know they're out of the playoffs. Do they pull back even more? Jonathan Williams was in there.
There it is. Jonathan Williams. That's the answer. Who is this week's Byron Pringle, Isaiah McKenzie?
Tampa Bay. Cyril Grayson.
It's not Brashad Perriman?
Cyril Grayson. 79% snap share, tied Antonio Brown, out-snapped Tyler Johnson, out-targeted Tyler Johnson. What do you have, 3 receptions for 70 yards last week?
I thought that was going to be the Tyler Johnson week. I thought Tyler Johnson was going to put up 70 yards.
Yep.
I didn't see this coming.
Cyril Grayson.
Wow, there it is. Okay. We can't have Cody Carpentier on the show and not talk about the NFL draft. 2022 NFL draft. Top 3 quarterbacks drafted. Who are the top 3 quarterbacks off the board in the NFL draft? We've talked about Pickett. We've talked about Sam Howell. And who would the third quarterback be?
I think Pickett is going to be your first quarterback off the board. I think Corral and Howell, if Carolina does the thing, if Carolina does the damn thing, it's going to be Howell or Corral. And then I like Willis and Strong.
For fantasy football, Willis and Strong have more upside than those guys, right?
In Dynasty, yes. But yes. In 2022, I'm looking at Howell and Pickett as your guys in 2022. If you're going to need that quick turnaround, you're like, I'm in trouble, I got a Big Ben as my quarterback, and you're in Superflex, you need that guy, it's going to be Sam Howell, it's going to be Pickett. If you're looking for 3 years down the road, 2 years down the road for that next, they're not Lamar Jackson. Malik Willis is not Lamar Jackson. But if you're looking for that next guy that's going to sit for a little bit, you're Trey Lance. That's your Malik Willis, your Carson Strong. That's your Trey Lance type. He needs the year to marinate.
Most years, I would say just go quarterback and Superflex and 2 QB, but this year
it's going to be tough.
There's multiple wide receivers I would rather have than any QB in 2 QB and Superflex drafts. I would rather have Treylon Burks. I'd rather have Garrett Wilson.
Yep.
Those guys are going to be 2 of the top 3 receivers off the board in the NFL draft, right?
Yes. I got Burks and Wilson and then Jameson Williams as my top 3.
Ooh,
I think Olave.
What about Olave? What happened to Olave?
Because he's not going to run as fast as some of these other guys, but he's a route genius, route god. And then you
is he a better route runner than Devontae Smith? No.
It's close.
Ooh.
It's close. And another guy that you should pay attention to that could come up if he runs fast could be a Jahan Dotson, a guy that does that Kadarius Toney type, that late surge.
Is he better than Toney, though? Never mind. But that's the answer. That was the answer. Running back, we love Breece Hall. I want Breece Hall. I'm going for Breece Hall. I'm hoping that in Superflex, someone goes quarterback and I can get Breece Hall. That would be fantastic. Get some quarterbacks drafted so I can get Hall, I can get Burks. After Hall, who's next?
Kenneth Walker of Michigan State, transferred from Wake Forest. He was in the running for the Heisman all year at Michigan State. He's a tough runner. Some people are saying he's like this year's Javonte Williams type guy.
So you think he's better than Isaiah Spiller?
I like him over Isaiah Spiller. Spiller's a very patient runner, a very patient guy like a Le'Veon Bell. We saw him in Pittsburgh kind of take his time. I don't love his speed. I don't love his burst. He's a good runner, don't get me wrong. A lot of people have him as their number 1, but I got him at 3 there by default.
I like that. No, I like that. I like you having a take on that. That's good. What about tight end? Who's the top tight end in this class?
The tight end class is a little more shaky, I would say.
It's definitely weaker than last year.
Yeah, I'm not overly excited. There's a lot of guys like Isaiah Likely's there, Jeremy Ruckert. Isaiah Likely's from Coastal Carolina. That's probably my favorite guy. But I'm not going to touch tight end until the 3rd round minimum, probably 4th round. But Isaiah Likely is the guy that I really think is going to be climbing throughout the process.
He's the likely riser.
He's the likely riser. Yes, sir.
Who's your top truther guy? Because you're studying the depths of these depth charts.
Yeah.
And looking at the snap shares and route participation rate tendencies. So if anyone would have a good handle or a good read on a good truther, a read on a good truther candidate would be you. So looking across your Dynasty League teams, who are you truthering most for on your taxi squad?
Quez Watkins. It's Quez Watkins. Has been.
Well, right, because next year they likely won't draft a wide receiver in the 1st round because, Howie's been snake bitten by wide receiver, and then they finally hit on Devontae Smith, and they can move on to other positions, even though they really still have a big need at wide receiver. Yeah. And then they'll be 2 years removed from the Jalen Reagor experience, and they'll be able to safely move on. That draft capital can support the route running, the opportunities, for a couple of years. But then eventually, Quez Watkins outplays Rager in preseason. He's going to be a starter next year.
I hate Nick Sirianni. I hate him. And I don't know how, as a coach, you don't say, and I've told you this since, I was talking about Quez a year and a half ago.
You loved Quez Watkins.
Quez is Will Fuller to what Jalen Hurts is to Deshaun Watson. Like, that's his guy. That's how Quez Watkins doesn't have 4 targets minimum per game and 3 of them with 50-plus yards of depth of target. Just put the ball in the air.
Why don't we run NFL teams? Imagine if we you and me and Josh and Anand. Oh, my God. We'd be just launching the ball downfield, running no run plays. It would be fantastic. Motion everywhere. It'd be a very complicated offense. It'd be a lot of false starts. A lot of illegal motions. But, okay, one bold prediction for 2022 NFL.
2022.
Something. Could be the draft. Could be the season. Something.
2022. That's not really bold.
What?
That's not very bold. I was going to say 2022 A.J. Brown, wide receiver 1, but that's not bold. That's not bold enough.
Yeah. I mean,
that's not bold enough.
Especially after what he did last week.
All right, I got you. Derrick Henry comes back in Week 18, and the Tennessee Titans win the AFC Championship.
That's the show. Did you really think of that at the last minute?
Yeah, I had nothing.
You just came up with that?
I told you before the show I had nothing.
That's one of the best bold predictions I've ever heard.
Really?
Because I forgot about Derrick Henry in the regular season. I forgot about that. It's possible. I didn't forget about Cam Akers, though.
Yeah, so he was one on there, but I didn't think that was bold enough because we already talked about it. And I was like, I don't know if they win the AFC Championship.
I'm so glad that we're back this year. We had this weird year last year where, other than Jonathan Taylor breaking out in the second half, really it was we just kind of it was just a grinded out season. We didn't have a lot of big wins, right? We had a bunch of DFS wins.
Yeah.
Big DFS wins. But in terms of season long, not great, right? It was an uneven year. This year, I mean, this Cam Akers hot take. I mean, we've been hitting on takes. I mean, Fournette. I mean, there's just been Josh was all in on DeAndre Swift. Like, it was just one thing after another, just dominoes falling, just takes hitting this year. And that's what I've been accustomed to. 2019 was similar. 2018 was and then I was like, I was a little bit wary heading into this season. I was like, oh, man, I hope we have a good season. And then I'm looking up, and I'm like, yeah, we had a good season.
we hit Tony before Tony broke out, Freiermuth before Freiermuth broke out, Treadwell.
We had a good season. And Josh finally hit his Burrow stack this past weekend. It's all happening. It's all happening. All the way down the board. Boom. And Jonathan Taylor MVP. I mean, yesterday, my wife and I were stopping somewhere for lunch, and it was next to the place where I got my Jonathan Taylor signed jersey framed, which was a gift from a listener, which was just the greatest gift ever. And I ran in there, and he was like on the phone. And I ran in there. He didn't recognize me because I was wearing a mask. And I pointed at him, and he was like all flustered, like didn't know why I was in his store. I said, I don't want anything. He's like, why are you here? And I'm like, Jonathan Taylor, dude, we did it. And he's like, what?
What
like,
the hell?
He was trying to figure out what the hell I was talking about. And he was like, I'm like, you framed the Jonathan Taylor jersey. I told you he was going to be awesome. He's like, oh, yeah, awesome, dude. And I was like, later. And I ran out. I just sort of, it was like a drive-by Jonathan Taylor high five.
You caught him. He's like, whoa, what did I do?
Because when I picked it up, he was like, so this Jonathan Taylor, you think he's going to be good for fantasy this year? I was like, good? The
best.
This guy's incredible. He's like, yeah, okay. I was like, you can probably get him in the second round. He's like, okay, I'll consider it. You know how people are.
Consider it.
They're like, oh, I'll take a look. All right, yeah. I run my fantasy team. Don't worry. I'm not just going to take random advice off the street from a customer. It wasn't like I didn't. I didn't pull up my business card and be like, hey, I run PlayerProfiler.com.
You should get stickers.
I'm just a regular guy with a Jonathan Taylor jersey to him.
You should get stickers of the werewolf and just hand them out in public.
Something. Yeah. You know what I'm not going to be handing out? I'm not handing out this to anybody. The old Dynasty Dominator book. That is a relic. People are now getting the new Dynasty Dominator Reloaded book and loving it. I mean, praise pouring in, dude. You have it. Amazon. I sent one to you. You just haven't been home yet. You haven't. It's in your mailbox. Yeah.
For those listening that don't have it, though, where can they get it? Amazon?
Amazon. Type in Dynasty Dominator Reloaded. It's great. It's actually thinner than this book because this has ridiculously large print. So this book is thinner, lighter. It's
more professional.
Yeah, it looks more professional. It doesn't look like something that you would give to a third grader for homework. It's like a real thing. It's real. It's good. It's good. I take a lot of pride in it. I think you learn a lot. Josh Larkey's reading it, and he's like, oh, I got a lot out of it. I was like, no, what? You knew this stuff. He's like, no, I didn't.
Dynasty is such a large field that there's just so many things that you learn and we talk about weekly. And then they like cycle out of your brain and they're there. And then you don't think about them until you like that book's probably perfect because it's all things we've talked about all year. 365 days we talk Dynasty. And then you go back through that book and you're like, oh, remember we talked about that? And then you just continually.
There's a book. There's a chapter in that book about stacking.
Yeah.
And I believe I used the example of Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. I believe.
Beautiful.
I don't take my. There's a chapter on stacking. Whether that was the exact example, but I know that was an example that was top of mind when I was writing.
Yeah.
It. So
that'd be perfect.
Say goodbye to the stream. Bye, stream.